touch one of mine and you're done. They show no love for the queen. Why you hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans? I got dreams like King Luther, shed blood like Kunsa. You ain't helping my people, I ain't got nothing to say to ya. I won't always smoke like hookah. Talking reparations, America won't be great until they give us compensation. I'm like, I'm the hottest right now. See a bunch of lames out here trying to jock on my style. They be doing too much. I'm the queen, it's too easy. It's like they all in Popeyes, how they be talking so greasy. I just sit back and laugh while these haters get mad. So nefarious how they don't want my pockets with cheddar. I tell them they can do better. These snakes in the grass can leave a bite on your ass, cause y'all be trusting too fast. I got my foot on the gas, other one on they necks. Dropping receipts on haters, you better show some respect. I'm never facing regret, we only facing the threat.
This is the sound of ANY1.
It's a cut on the gas, other one on they necks. Dropping receipts on haters, you better show some respect. I'm never facing regrets, we only facing the threat. Running through every challenge like a relay, break no sweat. It's a cold game, so I got that blanket with me. Now that my people awaken, ain't no going to sleep. I do not play by my piece, this time I'm playing for keeps. You talking slick, but when I see you like them ends, we gon' meet. And I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you're done. They show no love for the queen, why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans, and I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you're done. They show no love for the queen, why they hating on me? Okay, thank you guys for letting me know my mic was muted. Thank you. Okay, it's supposed to automatically unmute, but sometimes it doesn't. All right, so anyway, let me start my spiel all over again. All right, so hello everyone. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the original Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur show. I'm your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur, and this is your morning wake-up call. So as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. All right. Hello, Khalid Harleen in the building. Dee in Dallas. All right. Miss AP is in the house. Lady Painter. All right. Pearly. Andrew, all the way from Australia. Okay. Nicole is here. All right. Let's get into it. Pearly. Leon. All right. Alice is in the house. Everybody hit that like button. Okay. Thank you in advance. All right. Cassandra is here. Jeff ATL. We the people. All hell nah. Andrea. Okay. Nicole. All right. So let's get into it. Let's get into it. Everybody hit that like button. Please like, share, and subscribe. Now, before we get into the nefariousness of it all, honey, and trust me when I tell you it is just that. Okay, hey, Latasha. Okay, so before we get into it, let's have a brief word from our sponsor, because you all know the queen has to keep the lights on, honey. Please pay attention.
Do not buy 12 Tribes on Earth hair growth oil and hair magic elixir unless you want super healthy, gorgeous hair that grows. They have a whole line of amazing hair growth products, including hair growth leave-in conditioner spray, hair growth shampoo, hair growth spray, and hair growth butter. I'm starting to sense a theme here. They include quality natural ingredients. They smell amazing, and you can see the results for yourself. So if you're looking for healthy hair growth for your natural or relaxed hair, try 12 Tribes on Earth today.
All right. So with that being said, don't forget you can purchase 12 Tribes hair oil at Etsy.com. Just look for Lisa Crafts. You can also find it at Walmart.com. Okay. And so with that all being said, let's get into it. First of all, how many of you heard that Ozzy Osbourne has died? Ozzy Osbourne dead at the age of 76, they say. Okay, do you all know who Ozzy Osbourne is or was? Does anybody have a clue? Any of you all have a clue who this man was? Listen to any heavy metal, maybe, perhaps. Okay, VM said, yes, I heard. Let me tell y'all something. Honey, these people are sitting up here talking about RIP to Ozzy Osbourne. May he rest in peace. He's in the hands of God now. God's holding him in his arms. And all. I want y'all to pay attention. First of all, okay, there you go, Nicole. There you go, Nicole. This chat is so nefarious. I absolutely love it. Nicole called him a bat eater. Yes. Now I want you all to pay attention because they're sitting up here, like I said, talking about, oh, may he rest in the ever loving arms of God and the Most High and all this stuff. And, like this man was so holy and all of that. I want y'all to pay attention. He called himself the Prince of Darkness. Okay. He was the front runner of a band called Black Sabbath. I want y'all to pay attention. Now, for those of you who don't know, I'm just going to go through a brief history of this man because I find it all so interesting that people are trying to praise this devil after he's gone into the land of darkness where he obviously belongs as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so let's talk about it. Andrea said, no RIP for demonic and devils. Okay, let's get into it. So anyway, Ozzy Osbourne became a founding member of Black Sabbath in 1968, providing lead vocals for their debut studio album in 1970, Never Say Die. Okay, now in 1978, the band was highly influential in the development of heavy metal music. In particular, their critically acclaimed release called Paranoid and another called Master of Reality and Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. I want y'all to pay attention. Now, for those of you who don't know, back in the day, they used to play this music, specifically heavy metal. They would play this music and they would play it backwards. Okay, they would play it backwards and there would be like demonic messages and all sorts of nefariousness. Okay, I just want you all to pay attention. With that all been said, Ozzy Osbourne sold over 100 million albums, including his solo work and Black Sabbath releases. And he is also in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Okay, as a member of Black Sabbath in 2006 and as a solo artist in 2024. So he's been in there twice. He's been twice inducted. Okay, he's been twice inducted. Now let's talk about some of his nefarious deeds. Because what I find interesting is that they try to downplay some of these things that he did, such as biting the head off of a bat. Okay, such as biting the head off of a dove. They try to just act like, oh, this didn't mean to happen. It was an accident. I want y'all to listen to the foolishness. Now, throughout his career, many religious groups accused Osbourne of being a negative influence on teenagers, stating that his genre of rock music had been used to glorify Satanism. That's exactly what it was used. Why do you think he called it Black Sabbath? Okay, the name of his band. Now, anyway, they also compared him and the controversy surrounding him to those leveled against the occultist Aleister Crowley, who I'm sure he probably partook in some of his readings. Okay. Now, both were demonized by the media and some religious groups for their antics. All right. And then, of course, Ozzy Osbourne wanted to tempt it even further. In 1980, he put out a song called Mr. Crawley. Okay, I want y'all to pay attention. I think he just made my darn phone fall over. I'm using it to look at my chat. And it just fell over as soon as I said something about Aleister Crowley. Is the ghost of Aleister Crowley in here with a queen? Honey, please pay attention. Y'all think I'm joking. Honey, this has never fallen over before, but it's fallen over twice in a row since I brought up Aleister Crowley and the nefarious Ozzy Osbourne. What do y'all think? Is his ghost in here haunting the queen? Honey, he better get back, honey. Satan, don't try it with me. Okay, because I'm covered. But anyway, let me continue. Okay, Pensilola said the Prince of Darkness. Exactly. Exactly. All right. VM says Epstein's lawyer, Roy Black, just passed away at the age of 80. Really? Well, prayers and condolences to his family. Okay, so now with that all being said, KY85 said Black Sabbath, darkness on the holy day. Exactly. Okay, exactly, beloved. Now, so with that all being said, let's talk about it because here's some of the controversies. I just wanted to shed a little light on this because, see, when people like him pass away, they try to act like they were just, icons and just such lovely people and all of this. They don't want to talk about the nefariousness. And in fact, they try to make excuses for it. Okay, because I want you all to listen to this. In 1981, after his first solo record deal, Osbourne bit off the head of a dove, during a meeting with CBS Records executives in Los Angeles. You see, now apparently he had planned to release the doves into the air as a sign of peace. But due to intoxication, he instead grabbed a dove and bit its head off. Do y'all hear the bullshit? Do you all hear this? I want you all to pay attention. So blame it on the alcohol. That's what it is. Blame it on the alcohol because he was intoxicated. So rather than releasing the white doves into the air as a symbol of peace, he just decided out of nowhere because he was drunk to bite off its head. Do y'all hear this? These are the excuses they make. Retired federal police officer Carol Banks said, "We are not scared of nothing." That's right, honey. Okay, because we covered in the blood. Please pay attention. Now, with that, you know what? I think I'm going to stop saying that. Covered in the blood. It just reminds me of Carrie, the movie. Okay, and I really think that has something, some sketchy undertone. So I'll say covered by the Most High. All right, or in the name of the Lord. How about that? But anyway, listen. So anyway, he bit off this dove's head, and they claim it was because he was intoxicated. He spat the head out with the blood still dripping from his lips. Okay, as security was seen escorting Osbourne out of the building, he grabbed a second dove and also bit that head off. So we're supposed to think this is just coincidence, happenstance, or he didn't mean to do it. It was all because he was drunk. Now, due to its controversy, the head biting act has been parodied and alluded to several times throughout his career, and is part of what made Osbourne famous. That's why he's famous, for being nefarious. I want y'all to pay attention. Who bites off the head of anything while it's living? Now, here's another thing that happened. Let's talk about that bat, because they made an excuse for that too. On the 20th of January in 1982, Osbourne bit the head of a bat off. Now, they claim he thought it was rubber, okay, while performing at the Veterans Memorial Auditorium in Des Moines, Iowa. Okay, according to a 2004 Rolling Stone article, the bat was alive at the time. However, a 17-year-old Mark Neal, who threw it onto the stage, said it was brought to the show dead. According to Osbourne in the booklet in the 2002 edition of Diary of a Madman, which clearly he was, the bat was not only alive, but managed to bite him. Okay, resulted in Osbourne being given shots for rabies. Y'all hear this? This is who people are praising. I just want y'all to pay attention to that. I just thought that was important to note. Because, you know, when our people do something nefarious, they don't have a problem bringing that up, okay, after they're deceased, like that disrespectful news reporter who chose to bring up Bill Cosby and the scandal rather than talking about Malcolm Jamal Warner's life, okay, and what an awesome person he was and how he even won a Grammy, which many people don't even know. Okay, so I just want y'all to pay attention. Thought I would just put that out there. Okay, so now with that all being said, let's get into it. First of all, let me show you all this. And can somebody please tell me what the hell this is and what's going on here? Okay, is this AI or is this real? What is this? Please pay attention. What the hell is this? Do y'all see that? I hope you all can see that. Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. What is this? It says nobody but the Rothschilds. Look at this thing right here. Somebody dressed up like this thing, whatever it is, honey. It looks scary as all get out. Okay? I just want y'all to pay attention. This is what's going on around the world with freaks. Okay, so anyway. Now let's get into these receipts. Likes up, everyone, please like and share, because now they're claiming that a Florida man has been arrested for threatening to delete, okay, take out any and everybody who was on the Epstein client list. Okay. Before we get into it, let's listen to this brief report about the Epstein files fallout, because did this man really make a threat to delete everybody? Okay. That was on the Epstein list, or is this a ploy by Trump's administration to keep people from asking about it? Because, hey, everybody's under threat. Just want y'all to pay attention. You know, I'm just saying, I'm not saying that's the case. The man probably did do it, actually, but I wouldn't put it past Trump to try to use this as an excuse as to why he doesn't want to put out that file. Okay? Please pay attention. I mean, he's been gaslighting us the whole time, playing in our faces, releasing the documents about MLK, which there's some interesting information that came to light in that. I'll talk about that later on a different live.
And for more on this, I'm joined by defense attorney, former federal prosecutor Sarah Krisoff. Sarah, thanks for coming on. So what normally happens with grand jury testimony, and what are we likely to see from the DOJ now that the president's pushing for a release here? Because usually this kind of thing stays confidential.
Yeah, the default here really is secrecy, and there's a lot of reasons for that, and the system works pretty well. In this case, the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General have asked the district court to unseal just the transcripts of what has been presented to the grand jury. So it really is a very limited universe of information.
Let me just explain to you why. Okay, let me just explain to you all why it is a nothing burger, as I told you the other day, about these grand jury transcripts being released. First of all, because as I told you, it would likely only include information about Ghislaine and Epstein, okay? Not the people who were coming to them for services as clients. But also because it is a known fact that the Southern District of New York has a habit, a pattern of only releasing just minor details to the grand jury. And you know why that likely is? It's because you can indict even a ham sandwich, okay? Isn't that what I've told you all before, that it's a running joke among prosecutors that you can indict a hamburger or a ham sandwich at the end of the day, basically saying that you don't need a whole lot of evidence because you see, the defendant doesn't get to contest. They don't get to have their attorney counsel them or anything or whatever. And so basically the prosecutor just brings in whatever evidence they want, says whatever they want to say. And that's how that goes. So there would not be anything, that would really be beneficial to anything that we don't already know as it pertains to the Epstein case if they just release the grand jury paperwork, which is probably no longer than 30 to 60 pages, by the way. Now, Andrew says, how can you threaten to kill someone on a list if there is no list? Thank you. Okay, now if that man made those threats and there's no one on the list and the list doesn't even exist, very good question, Andrew. How and why was that man arrested? Why would you arrest him for saying something that couldn't even ever happen? Because according to Trump and his administration, and Pam Bondi specifically, there is no list. Okay, so please make it all make sense. That's why I'm wearing my Make It Make Sense hoodie today. Please pay attention. You all can purchase your Make It Make Sense shirts at my store, okay, my Spreadshirt store. Now let's continue.
And they've asked the court to unseal, but I think it's very possible the court just says no. I mean, there's lots of compelling reasons to keep it secret. The least of which is that there's still a defendant in custody for this case, Miss Maxwell. So I think the judge is probably going to be inclined towards keeping it secret, although maybe he can be convinced otherwise.
There are growing calls in Congress now to try to compel the government to release all files related to Jeffrey Epstein. Do you see any legal implications there if that happens?
So, I mean, as I understand, I think Congress itself has little control over that. It's really the Justice Department that has to decide whether or not to release these materials. So releasing materials wholesale in a case like this is I think never going to happen. I mean, these materials are filled with information about people who patronized Epstein's ring, about minor victims, and even with extensive redactions, they just couldn't be released wholesale. I don't think that's a possibility. There is a real question of whether sort of a larger subset of the materials could be released publicly after they're scrubbed for material that really should not be in the public domain. But I mean, I think that's really within the purview of the Justice Department. They are going to decide whether or not that's done.
Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted of conspiring and aiding Jeffrey Epstein. She's serving a 20-year prison sentence. Her attorneys are now trying to appeal her conviction. So do you think that conviction will play a role in the government's decision as to whether or not to disclose more evidence from its investigations? Could that disclosure impact her case?
Yeah, I mean, how that really ties in here is the government's request to the trial court to unseal these transcripts into unsealed portions of the case, they're making an argument, there's lots of interest in this. This is historical significance. But those types of arguments are usually made in cases that are 20, 30, 50, 80 years old, right? And we don't have someone who is in custody still trying to fight their conviction related to the case. So, I mean, there's a real tension here because this is not just a matter of historical significance, but a matter affecting, people who are here today and people who are a woman who is in custody today based on.
Okay, so you all heard that. Now, here's the thing. I find it very interesting that now they're saying Epstein's lawyer is dead. His lawyer is dead when all of this is happening. Now, mind you, the man was 80 years old, but I'm just saying it's the timing of it all for me. Okay. Now, but let's talk about this man who was arrested for threatening to kill people on a list that doesn't even exist. Please make it all make sense. A Florida man was arrested last week for allegedly threatening to kill everyone that he believed was on the Epstein client list. Charging documents were unsealed on Monday. Now, Terry Bailey Corsi allegedly posted the threats on X last Tuesday, seemingly reacting to a response from X's AI agent, Grok, that disputed any such client list even exists, as the FBI and Justice Department recently have confirmed. All lies and BS as far as I'm concerned. Okay, well, Grok, you're wrong. Everyone involved, if I see them in real life, I will kill on sight. That's what he said. I will kill everyone on the list on sight. And they absolutely deserve it. That's what he wrote on X. Now, he said, everyone involved, if I see them in real life, I will kill them on sight. Why was this man arrested when clearly there should be no one for him to see on sight because there is no one on the list because there is no list? I will kill everyone on the list on sight, and they absolutely deserve it. That's what he said. That's what he said. Now, roughly an hour after that post, Bailey Corsi posted another message singling out 3 government officials unnamed in the charging documents. Said that he would kill you on sight. And maybe that's why I was arrested, because that's all nefarious. I wonder who these 3 people were. See, I want you all to pay attention. Now, why won't they admit to who these 3 people were? Are y'all paying attention? Are y'all paying attention? They will not tell us who the 3 people that he named are. Why not? We know they couldn't really have been on Epstein's list because there is no list, right? Why don't they want to tell us who the 3 people are that he in fact threatened? Those people must really be on a list, okay? And that's why he was arrested. Please pay attention. Now, with that all being said, now that's just my opinion. Prosecutors detailed multiple other concerning messages they say were posted by Bailey Corsi over the next several days, including a video posted where he threatened another unnamed government official. What does this man know? Who are these government officials he keeps naming, and why won't they tell us who they are? News of Bailey Corsi's arrest was first reported by Court Watch. Now, a public defender listed as representing Bailey Corsi did not immediately respond to requests for comment. As of Monday afternoon, Bailey Corsi had not yet made his initial court appearance, according to court records, and had not yet entered a plea. The Epstein, a wealthy financier and convicted S-offender, died by his own hands, so they say, in prison in 2019 while awaiting trial for S-trafficking minors. Y'all hear that? Unnamed government officials. Okay, they don't want to tell us who these people are, but why? Was Trump one of them? Was Bill Clinton one of them? Was it Hillary? I just have several questions. Or was it someone more current? I have a whole lot of questions. Okay? I have a whole lot of questions. Likes up, everyone. Please like and share. Now, let me see something here. Well, this just came out a few hours ago. Epstein's former attorney who secured the plea deal dead at 80. Like I said, he was old. People die at that age all the time, but it's the timing of it. Okay, that just makes me think it's something more to it. Roy Black, the prominent defense attorney who helped secure Epstein's 2008 plea deal, has died, according to his law partner. Black died on Monday at his home in Coral Gables at the age of 80 after an illness. Okay, this is what his law partner, Howard Shrebnick, says. For more than 30 years, Roy was my teacher, mentor, and friend, Shrebnick says. The losses I feel personally and professionally are immeasurable. Black's death marks the end of a career in defense law spanning over 5 decades. Now, why does this even matter? Black rose to national prominence after working on major legal cases, including winning acquittals in the 1991 grape trial of William Kennedy Smith, a nephew of the late President John F. Kennedy. Did y'all know that? Mm-hmm. Okay, the trial was a watershed moment in criminal defense as most of it was broadcast live on national television with a blue dot obscuring the identity of the accuser. Now, Black also played a role in Epstein's legal defense during the 2006 Florida criminal case involving charges of soliciting prostitution from people who didn't have the right age. Okay, in 2008, Epstein avoided more severe federal charges by pleading guilty to state charges of procuring a person under the age of 18 for prostitution and solicitation of prostitution. Epstein was sentenced to 18 months in prison. He only served 13. Now, Roy Black, see, this is the thing. I want you all to pay attention. That wasn't even his first time having a brush with the law. That wasn't his first time, but he only served 13 of an 18-month prison. How much time y'all think Diddy's going to get? Because this was what people that were not of age, what Epstein did. Okay, so what do you think they're going to give Diddy? Yeah, I have questions. Now, with that all being said, I don't think Diddy's going to get much time. Is all I'm saying. If the judge is being fair, he shouldn't as a first offender. Okay, so anyway, specifically when you have people like Epstein doing only 13 months, okay, for doing things with a minor, like Kendrick Lamar said. Okay, so goes on to say that 2 women subsequently filed a lawsuit saying that the deal violated federal law because they were never given an opportunity to object or adequately be consulted about the deal. Now, Roy Black, who was one of Epstein's lawyers, said in court papers that there was no conspiracy to violate victims' rights and that the plea bargain was no sweetheart deal by any stretch of the imagination. Of course it was. He did 13 months. How was it not a sweetheart deal? Okay, especially for somebody who was such a freak and a nasty, low-down, dirty, depraved individual as Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, in 2015, Black filed motions to block the release of emails and letters that Epstein's lawyers sent to federal prosecutors during plea negotiations. He wanted to block the release of the emails and letters. I just want you all to pay attention to this. He wanted to block the release of emails and letters that Epstein's lawyers sent to federal prosecutors during plea negotiations. Wanted to get rid of that evidence, okay? Just like they want to do right now. He and Martin Weinberg argued that Epstein would be irreparably harmed if they were made public. Okay, y'all? And think about that, because this is also the problem with these Epstein files that they refuse to release and want to tell us there's no list. Because in fact, there would be many people, I'm sure, politicians, Hollywood celebrities, okay, athletes, owners of franchises like the NFL, NBA, perhaps. This is all speculation, but I'm just saying. These are some of the things that could happen if that list were to ever get out. Could cause irreparable harm to some people. Epstein later died in a jail cell in New York in 2019. During his career, Black defended a number of high-profile clients, including pop star Justin Bieber, who faced allegations of drag racing and driving a car under the influence. Bieber pleaded guilty to the lesser charge of misdemeanor careless driving and resisting arrest. Black has also helped race car driver Helio Castroneves win acquittal in a case alleging tax evasion. Okay, fellow defense attorney David O. Marcus told the Associated Press that in Miami, Black was viewed in legal circles as the GOAT, i.e. the greatest of all time, comparing him to NBA Hall of Famer Michael Jordan. Now, David O. Marcus told the AP that he worked harder than any lawyer I know, and he out-lawyered every prosecutor who ever went up against him. I will miss him. His impact on criminal defense is beyond measure. Does this sound like somebody you think they want to get rid of? Okay, when it comes to talking about these Epstein files and trying to have these things all exposed and brought to the forefront so that everyone can see and know who was exactly on the list, does this sound like maybe they might want to get rid of him because maybe he knew too much? I don't know. But I think it's very interesting. TC Dan said, never mind the man behind the curtain. Trump administration. Exactly. There's nothing here to see, folks. Okay, nothing to see here. Now, Jackie Perzek, another of Black's law partners, said that she learned from him that it was a lawyer's duty to fiercely battle the oppressors and support the underdog. She added that Jeffrey Epstein was no one who was oppressed. Okay, clearly was not an underdog. She added that this generation and many to come stand on his shoulders. Leah Black, his wife, told the Miami Herald that he always fought for the underdog and people's civil rights. He understood that we all have our flaws, and he was able to separate people's behavior from their character. He wanted the best for everyone, she said. He is survived by his wife, Leah, their son, RJ, and daughter, Nora. Funeral arrangements have yet to be announced. What do y'all think? Maybe it's a nothing burger. Maybe it's just coincidence. I don't know, but you never can tell. You never can tell, okay? Andrew says Maxwell will be dead soon. You know, I absolutely was thinking about that, beloved, and I would not be surprised. But hopefully before they do anything to her, I hope she comes out and spills the tea. Okay, so let's get into it. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance, because now Congress wants to subpoena Ghislaine. I'm going to share my screen. The House Oversight Committee, to be exact.
I'm Matt Gelka in Washington, where there's a new push to get the former girlfriend of Jeffrey Epstein, the disgraced financier and sex offender, to talk to Congress. There's a new push for Jeffrey Epstein's former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, to tell Congress what she knows about the sex offender's alleged ties to the world's most powerful. Maxwell is a co-conspirator in the Epstein sex trafficking case, and Epstein's former attorney says she should be given immunity to speak.
She knows everything. She is the Rosetta Stone. She knows everything. She arranged every single trip with everybody. She knows everything. And if she were just given use immunity, she could be compelled to testify.
Maxwell is appealing a 20-year prison sentence she received after being convicted of helping Epstein carry out sex trafficking. Tennessee Republican Tim Burchett says he's told the House Oversight Committee to question her after the appeal.
If we have to do it in a closed-door session, then I say let's do it. But I think we need to get her in front of the members and ask her what she knows.
The Justice Department has asked for Epstein grand jury testimony to be unsealed after days of being battered by influential Republican voices and numerous negative headlines for not being transparent enough about the Epstein case. The president referred to supposed Epstein files as a Democrat hoax as the administration tries to change the narrative and ask why Democrats care about the case now when Epstein died in 2019.
The Jeffrey Epstein files should be released. Congress needs to release them.
Absolutely.
Why do you think Biden didn't do it for 4 years?
Democrats say the fervor over the Epstein files is the Trump administration's own doing.
So the president blaming Democrats for this disaster, Jake, is like that CEO that got caught on camera blaming Coldplay, okay? Like, this is his making.
One of the president's most outspoken supporters in Congress, Georgia Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene, seemed to warn him in a post on X on Monday that dangling pieces of info and not delivering will cause the base to turn on him, writing in part, "Bits of red meat no longer satisfies." Reporting in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka.
Let's be clear. Let's be clear about.
All right, so you all heard that. Hold on, honey. I stopped it too soon. Let's go back for a second because let's hear what Jeffries is talking about, honey. He's talking about Trump and Epstein. Hold on. Let me scroll back just a minute.
Let's be clear. Let's be clear about the situation here. Jeffrey Epstein was a friend of Donald Trump. Jeffrey Epstein was arrested during the Trump administration. Jeffrey Epstein was detained during the Trump administration. Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide during the Trump administration. Trump administration officials have said prior to arriving in Washington in positions of prominence, including at the FBI and the Department of Justice, that they were going to release the Epstein files. Trump administration officials are now in a position to release the Epstein files. Does any of that in your view, have anything to do with President Joe Biden? Why do we think President Joe Biden or President Barack Obama's names are being invoked? Because Donald Trump is running scared. And the Trump administration is running scared. What are they hiding from the American people? Release the files so that the American people can make a decision on their own. This has nothing to do with a Democratic-led conspiracy theory. And the facts and the chronology make that clear.
Okay, so you all heard that. Now, Nene says, how come Biden didn't do it? Well, you know, that's a good question, too. Probably for the same reason Trump doesn't want to do it, beloved. Maybe their names are on the list. Okay, I have several questions about it. And I find it all very interesting. And here's the thing. You know, the Democrats or the Republicans, either of them could have released the files, but nobody did and nobody ever will. And I think we all know why at this point. Okay, I think we all know why. Here's the thing. Trump thought that his base was just going to go along with what he said, as they often do. You see, when Trump says something, they tend to believe whatever he says, no matter how nonsensical it may seem. So when he told them that only weaklings and troublemakers are worried about the Epstein files, and it's just a Democratic hoax started by Obama and Biden and also Comey, well, at the end of the day, he thought they would go for that. And he also was trying to use a bit of reverse psychology by calling them stupid, weaklings, and all of that, and troublemakers. He thought they would just tuck their tails and turn away, as they often do when he said something. He thought because he's their leader, okay, that they would go along with it. But alas, that's not what happened. So now they're pushing back, and he's losing control over his own base. MAGA is turning against him. Okay, many of them. Nicole said, keep your foot on his neck to release those files. The American people have a right to know. Absolutely, we do. Absolutely, we do. Now let's talk about Ghislaine Maxwell, because the House Oversight Committee wants to subpoena her for testimony. Let's get into it. Likes up, everyone. Please don't forget to like and share. Okay, now the powerful GOP-led House Oversight Committee will seek to subpoena convicted ex-trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell for testimony about the Epstein case as expeditiously as possible, according to a spokesperson who confirmed it all yesterday on Tuesday. Now, Representative Tim Burchett had requested Chairman James Comer summon the imprisoned British socialite for testimony. Comer instead asked Burchett to introduce a formal motion, which the panel approved by voice vote. They say since Ms. Maxwell is in federal prison, the committee will work with the Department of Justice and Bureau of Prisons to identify a date when committee can depose her. That's what a committee rep said. So it's going to happen from the sounds of it. Now, despite demands from lawyers of both parties, House GOP leadership has so far stymied efforts to compel the release of additional information about the convicted PDF file who was found dead in his Manhattan jail cell on August 10th of 2019. Earlier Tuesday, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche announced that he had reached out to Ghislaine Maxwell's legal team and intends to meet with her in the incoming days, okay, to hear what she has to say. Now, Maxwell's attorney later confirmed that there have been talks with the Justice Department. Former Epstein attorney Alan Dershowitz has claimed that Maxwell knows everything about Epstein's perverted crimes, including he described her as the Rosetta Stone of the years-long case. The Epstein drama burst back onto front pages with a July 6th Justice Department FBI joint memo that concluded the 66-year-old financier deleted himself in lockup and did not have a client list of powerful friends who partook in debased crimes, okay, against young girls, contrary to widespread speculation. It was all just nonsense, they say. President Trump has blasted the controversy as a hoax and ripped a faction of his supporters who have become fixated on it. Democrats have quickly pounced on the controversy and repeatedly sought to put Republicans on the spot, saying, we're not going to play political games with this. This is what House Speaker Mike Johnson said, okay, on Tuesday. He said, we want any individual who has been involved in any way in the Epstein evils to be brought to justice as quickly as possible. See, this is how you can tell the people who likely didn't have anything to do with it, because they're the ones fighting to get the information out there. Okay, they're the ones that want Ghislaine Maxwell to testify so they can get all the details and salacious and nefarious ones. Okay, but at the end of the day, some of these Republicans, like perhaps, and I'm just speculating, this is all, has not been verified, but I'm just speculating, people like Bill and Hillary Clinton, perhaps Joe Biden, and a few others might not want this stuff released. Now, on Monday evening, Republicans recessed a House Rules Committee meeting after Democrats were poised to force a vote on releasing the Epstein files. Because the Rules Committee serves as a gatekeeper for most types of legislation that came up for a vote on the House floor, GOP leadership has effectively been stalled from taking up other bills that they intended to get in before the August recess. Now, on Tuesday, House GOP leadership announced that no further votes would be held after Wednesday afternoon. Last week, the Trump administration asked a federal judge to sign off on releasing grand jury testimony in the cases of both Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, who's now serving a 20-year bid after being convicted of sex trafficking and conspiracy. Y'all hear this? They're still playing these games, okay? They're still playing these games. Please pay attention. Now, let's talk about, hold on. Yeah, let's talk about this Trump and Epstein bombshell, this leaked photo from a 1993 wedding. Did y'all hear about this? Well, let's get into it, because Trump's just getting exposed left and right. Okay, he's clearly on the run, just like Hakeem Jeffries said, even though I can't stand Hakeem Jeffries. But nonetheless, he is clearly on the run. Okay, Trump Epstein bombshell, leaked photos from 1993 wedding spark outrage. Let's get into it. I'm going to share my screen. Reggie said, good Lord, there's more. Oh, yes, beloved, there's absolutely more. There always is with Trump's lying self.
Out front tonight, the breaking news, a CNN exclusive tonight out front. K-File has unearthed photos of Jeffrey Epstein that we've never seen, and they shed new light on his relationship with President Trump. The revelations come as Trump is under fire from his own base for his Justice Department's handling of the so-called Epstein files. Trump has tried, of course, to distance himself from Epstein every which way. But one of the photos that K-File found confirms that Epstein actually attended Donald Trump's wedding to Marla Maples. And this is the proof. Again, this has never been published before. So this is a new image. You haven't seen it out there on X or anything like that. This is the proof that Epstein attended Trump's wedding at the Plaza Hotel in New York. And in the photo, what you see is Epstein entering the Plaza Hotel. The wedding date of this is December 20th, 1993, in the center of their friendship, which of course continued. And for comparison, we'll show you on the right a photo of Trump and Marla Maples at the same location under the entryway arch. Andrew Kaczynski of K-File is here with the new images of Trump and Epstein. And Andrew, I shared one of them there, but so let's start with the one at Trump's wedding. I mean, this is a significant development.
Well, yeah, it is. Trump's wedding to Marla Maples in 1993 was dubbed the wedding of the century by the media at the time. And although we know that Trump and Epstein were friends during this period, this is really the first time that it's actually been reported that Trump invited Epstein to his wedding. This is, we should note, more than a decade before those first allegations of sex trafficking against Epstein. But as you know, Trump's relationship with Epstein has been under the microscope recently. Now, besides that one photo of Epstein entering the reception at the Plaza Hotel, we can also see him in the background of another picture. That's Howard Stern on the far right, along with Robin Leach from Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. And Epstein is behind them at the wedding, almost seeming to be photobombing them. We also found this photo from just a few months earlier, Donald Trump with two of his children talking to Jeffrey Epstein. That's at the opening of the Harley-Davidson Cafe in New York in October 1993. You can see Ivana there. She would have been just about to turn 12 years old in that photo.
Yeah, you can see Ivanka right there it looks like between Trump and Epstein. All right, these are never before seen photos, Andrew. I know you also found some video of Trump and Epstein that was from later of them talking. that has also never surfaced before. What's that?
Well, that's right. This is from 6 years later in 1999. This video has never been seen before in this context. It shows Trump talking to Jeffrey Epstein just before models hit the runway at the Victoria's Secret fashion show in New York in 1999. You know, the only other video we've seen of the two men was 7 years before this. Trump is at the show with Melania, who is, of course, now First Lady, seated a few feet away from Epstein. You can see them chat the show as well. Allegations that Epstein sexually abused underage girls didn't surface until 2005, years after this video was shot.
Right, but this, of course, establishes them together and obviously very friendly in 1999. So, Andrew, when you get all this, and all of this is, as I just want to emphasize, right, has not been seen before. So you actually called President Trump. You called him directly to ask him about this.
Yeah, we were not on the phone very long. I think our call was about 30 seconds or so. But when I asked him about the wedding photo, he said, he sort of paused for a second and then said, "You've got to be kidding me," before calling CNN fake news and then hanging up on me. Now, in a statement to CNN, White House Communications Director Stephen Chung said this. He said, "These are nothing more than out of context frame grabs of innocuous videos and pictures of widely attended events to disgustingly infer something nefarious. The fact is that the president kicked him out of his club for being a, quote, creep."
All right. Well, it is incredible reporting, and it is important in this context as the country wants, answers on everything to do with Epstein. Andrew, thank you so much for all of that.
Okay, so more bombshells coming out on Trump. Nene says, "Going to the wedding isn't exactly the type of damning evidence I was expecting." Well, you know, beloved, it just goes to show how good of friends they were, because several people have said that Trump and Epstein were, in fact, besties. Okay, several people have said this, but Trump wants us to think that he wasn't a fan. And I want you to pay attention, because I'm going to show you somebody else that Trump was good friends with and then said he wasn't a fan. Okay, please pay attention. Trump is just a liar who lies. Okay, he's just a liar who lies. G from the land says, "Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance." Said, "Keep putting in that work." You know I will, beloved, and thank you for being a member for 6 months. Okay, now let's talk about it. Because Clinton, Bill Clinton, that is, and Trump are named in Jeffrey Epstein documents. And again, they say no evidence of wrongdoing. That's what they keep saying. But why did Jeffrey Epstein have this painting hanging in his house? I have several questions. Okay? I have several questions. Don't you all? I find it all so nefarious. TC Dan says, "Queen, there's so much spin that I'm getting dizzy." I know you are, because I certainly am, beloved. And thank you for being a member for 3 months. Now, here's what they say. Former presidents Bill Clinton and Donald Trump are mentioned in newly unsealed Jeffrey Epstein-related court documents, but they're not accused of any wrongdoing involving the disgraced SEX trafficking financier. Clinton, who sometimes flew aboard Epstein's private plane, is listed repeatedly in the documents. He was the topic of an argument over the credibility of a witness who said she saw the former president when he was a guest of Epstein's. Trump's name appears in a document in which Epstein is quoted as saying that he would invite the then real estate mogul to join him at a casino. Well, you know what? I absolutely know that's true. Because let's not forget how someone came out just days ago. I showed you all the video. The guy who used to be the CEO of one of Trump's casinos, remember? He said that Trump and Epstein brought underage people or women to the casino. Now, they weren't minors, but they were less than 21, which is the age for you to enter a casino. One of them was a third-ranking world tennis champ who was like 19 years old. Y'all remember that? So this all sounds like it's corroborating what I already told you all days ago. Okay, I want you all to pay attention. This is all a hot mess for Trump. Okay, Trump thought he was just going to sit there and talk hogwash to his supporters and thinking that they're just going to stay stuck on stupid and not push back. Well, he was wrong. Nicole says, "I'm just getting in on the membership party." Thank you, beloved, for purchasing a membership and being a member for 3 months. I appreciate you. Okay, so now here's what they say. They say his name appears on there multiple times, right? And so does Bill Clinton's, but we're not supposed to think anything nefarious went on. The unsealed documents also list prominent people who have denied accusations against them, including Prince Andrew of Great Britain and prominent litigator Alan Dershowitz. That's Epstein's former attorney. Okay, the one that said that he knows about the names of the people that Epstein was dealing with, but he's been told to be quiet. Okay, there's a gag on him. Remember, I showed you all the video. So anyway, the Epstein list and guilt by association, Dershowitz said on the social media platform X, formerly known as Twitter. On Fox News, Dershowitz said that the woman who accused me has now stated categorically that she may have misidentified me continuously with someone else. I never met her, never heard of her, never spoke to her. And he's talking about Virginia Giuffre. Okay, among other names, billionaire hedge fund founder Glenn Dubin, high-powered fashion CEO Les Wexner, okay, whom I believe was having a whole relationship with Epstein. Remember, he claimed that Epstein stole about $40 million from him. Okay, he also had Epstein in charge of his trust and all of that. And the deceased modeling agent Jean-Luc Brunel. Now we're going to talk about him in just a second. Of all of the accused have denied allegations of wrongdoing in connection with Epstein. Most of the documents unsealed were part of a lawsuit brought by Virginia Giuffre, one of Epstein's victims. More documents and names were expected to be released. Okay, y'all hear that? Now, one of Giuffre's attorneys, Sigrid McCrawley, said that more needs to be known about who enabled and facilitated Epstein's trafficking network, and that survivors of his abuse deserve more justice, saying the public interest must still be served in learning more about the scale and scope of Epstein's racket to further the important goal of shutting down trafficking wherever it exists and holding more to account. Okay, the unsealing of these documents gets us closer to that goal, he said. Other names released include abuse victims, litigation witnesses, and Epstein associates and employees. Many had only a tangential connection to the financier. Okay, so who was accused of operating an international trafficking ring targeting underage girls. Some of the people named are now deceased. Did they die? Did they just die, or were they killed? Okay. David Ring, a California-based trial lawyer who has represented many abuse victims, said public release of information can help victims gain closure. He noted that victims are often restricted by civil settlements from talking about the abuse they experienced. Anytime there is a spotlight that's shown on the perpetrator and his circle of friends and what went on there, I think that's a good thing. Now, it gives the victims a lot of closure, frankly, instead of just secrecy where they're not even allowed to talk about it. Now, earlier releases listed Clinton and Trump as passengers on Epstein's private plane, but neither has been accused of wrongdoing. For years, supporters of Trump and Clinton have accused each of the former presidents of greater involvement with Epstein, but nothing in the new document backs up those claims. Well, they probably removed some of the documents for all we know. I'm just saying, could have. Trump posed with Epstein and partner Ghislaine Maxwell in a now famous photo taken in 2000 at Mar-a-Lago, his private Palm Beach club. And in 2002, he referred to Epstein as a terrific guy. Okay, you all remember that. I just told you that on yesterday, I believe. Trump later said he had broken with Epstein. I had fallen out with him a long time ago. Okay, I don't think I've spoken to him in 15 years. That's what he said in 2019. I was not a fan. Spokespeople for Clinton have said that he made trips to Europe, Asia, and Africa on Epstein's plane, and that the former president had met with the financier in his Manhattan office in 2002. They say President Clinton knows nothing about the horrible crimes Jeffrey Epstein pleaded guilty to in Florida some years ago, or those which he has been recently charged in New York. That's what they said in 2019, Clinton's spokesperson. Among the documents released is the transcript of a 2016 deposition in which a second Epstein victim testified that Epstein said one time that Clinton likes them young, referring to girls. She didn't elaborate. That victim testified that after landing in Atlantic City, New Jersey, on one occasion, Jeffrey said, "Great, we'll call up Trump and we'll go to, I don't recall the name of the casino, but we'll all go to the casino," she says. She also said in the deposition that Prince Andrew had inappropriately touched her at Epstein's mansion in New York. Now, under the U.S. District Judge Loretta A. Preska ordered the unsealing of more documents noting that most of the information was already public and that people named in the documents had not been objected to their release. Okay, or had not objected to their release. Hours before the release, Judge Preska wrote that 2 people identified as Doe 107 and Doe 110 had asked their names to remain under seal pending future court action. Y'all hear this? Yeah, they didn't want their name put out there. Now, the documents stem from a now settled 2015 lawsuit filed by Virginia Giuffre, who accused Epstein and Maxwell of directing her involvement with prominent men. Now, in pretrial litigation, Maxwell said that Giuffre lied about seeing Clinton on Epstein's private Caribbean island and said that this assertion undercut her credibility in general. This dispute is the reason the former president's name pops up so frequently in the documents, they say. So Maxwell said that Giuffre lied about it, and we're supposed to believe her and not Virginia Giuffre, who's now dead. May she rest forever in peace. Okay, a victim from the age of 16 of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. I always feel so sorry for that lady every time I think about her. Now, Clinton's office said in 2019 that the former president had never been to Epstein's island and had not spoken to Epstein in well over a decade. Epstein was we already know about Epstein. Okay. Federal prosecutors in Manhattan charged Epstein with trafficking in 2019 after the Miami Herald renewed interest in the case. And then he died. Okay. We already know about all of that, which sounds like a whole lie. All right. So I want you all to pay attention. Clinton and Trump. That's 2 people who are tied to Epstein in one way or another. But did you all also know that Trump has also been tied to Harvey Weinstein? Did you all know that? And Epstein tied to Weinstein. Did you all know that? See, I'm connected all these dots. I want you all to pay attention. Epstein and Harvey Weinstein were friends. Don't y'all find that interesting? Yeah, here they go. What do you say about that? But not only was Trump friends with people like Epstein. Where's that picture? Hold on. Trump was also friends with Prince Andrew, whom he claimed he didn't know. I showed you all this days ago. And we know what we heard about Virginia Giuffre's accusations against Prince Andrew. But Trump was also friends with Harvey Weinstein. He could still be, for all we know. He said that he fell out with him and that he wasn't a fan. Okay, I want y'all to pay attention. So let's talk about it just a little bit further, shall we? Weinstein's fall grew from rage over Trump. Let's talk about this connection. Now, what I find interesting is there's a video about it. But when I go to show the video, here's what happens. I want you all to pay attention because y'all don't think this is interesting. Hold on. This video just will not play. I've tried it a myriad of times and it just will not play. I get this crazy message. Maybe it'll play this time. Let's see. Likes up, everyone. Please don't forget to like and share. Thank you in advance. Here's the video right here. You see what happens every time? I've been trying this for days. Unable to load video. Please try again later. That's what it says. That's what it says. It just won't load. Don't y'all find that interesting? So anyway, as more and more institutions withdraw their honors and his career careens quickly and deservedly down the drain, Harvey Weinstein clearly has himself to blame for his problems. But should Weinstein in part blame Donald Trump or for whipping up Hollywood against sexual assault in the first place? In case you've forgotten, because he counts on us having a short attention span, during the 2016 election, Donald Trump was accused of sexual assault or harassment by 17 women. This man's the president? Yeah, they still voted him in. Before the election, okay, in 2016, they had these allegations against Trump, but he still was elected and has been reelected. Donald Trump was accused of the sexual assault or harassment of 17 women, and Trump was literally caught on tape bragging about grabbing women by the pussy. Nonetheless, he was still elected president, including winning the vote of 52% of white women. The day after Trump won, basically the other 48% of white women, most of the women of color in America, and a lot of men were pretty much horrified. This was definitely true in Hollywood. America's cultural tastemakers had mustered massive amounts of money and outrage to try to bring Trump to defeat. And they, liberal celebrities specifically, failed. Now, these stars and titans who outwardly championed women's rights and equality had not only failed to leverage their prodigious influence, and power to elect the nation's first female president, but instead saw the ascension of a president who in every way seemed to be a backlash against the fairness and tolerance of which Hollywood has always imagined itself to stand. Y'all hear this? Y'all hear this? This is all so crazy. At the end of the day, it looks like Trump has a whole lot of reasons, in my opinion, as to why he doesn't want the Epstein's files released. And as to why he's going to act like, this is just all a load of BS and a whole hoax put out there by the Democrats. But the thing is, did the Democrats tell him to say any of these things about him releasing the files? They didn't tell him to say anything about that. They didn't tell him to say anything about that. So why would he even bring it up? I just have several questions. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. Now, with that all being said, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Now, where was I? These stars and titans who outwardly champion women's rights and equality have not only failed to leverage their prodigious influence and power to elect the nation's first female president, but instead saw the ascension of a president who in every way seemed to be a backlash against the fairness and tolerance from which Hollywood has always imagined itself to stand. As Rebecca Traister wrote in New York Magazine after the Weinstein allegations started coming out, she said something has changed. She suggests a link between not only Trump and Weinstein, but also Bill Cosby, Roger Ailes, and Bill O'Reilly. Traister ponders whether there have been shifts in how we understand these kinds of abuses, perhaps combined with scores of women finding length and some kind of power in numbers, all of which I hope is true. Beginning with the largest march of women and their allies the day after Trump was inaugurated, we reached some critical mass in America and around the world of just refusing to stay silent and together. More and more women are speaking out. And at the same time, for Hollywood in particular, the challenge of Weinstein was interesting timing. Coming out on the heels of the outrage about Trump in particular, I want you all to pay attention. Hollywood couldn't really afford to stay silent without looking ridiculously and obviously hypocritical. This wasn't Woody Allen or Roman Polanski or even Casey Affleck. Weinstein was a titan of Hollywood, almost like its own unelected president, and the head of the "Look, I'm a liberal feminist" charitable parade, alleged to be doing the same thing Hollywood stars had been just shouting against Trump for. Even in the face of the sheer scale and severity of what he is accused of doing, the swift downfall of Weinstein at pretty much every level has been breathtaking in its own way. It's almost as if Hollywood, frustrated they couldn't impeach Donald Trump, impeached Harvey Weinstein instead, even though they both deserve it, she said. Are y'all listening? There is some illusion here. Hollywood, of course, is the land of illusion, and one of the most pronounced and prolonged of these is the discrepancy between what the audience is meant to see and what goes on behind the scenes. You would think that the town that literally invented scripted reality shows, that's a thing, would learn to not believe in its own projections. Hollywood has always talked a good game about women's rights, gay rights, racial justice, and economic justice, but then failed time and time again to live up to its own rhetoric. Hollywood is supposedly so gay friendly, but where are all those openly gay and trans leading characters in the mainstream movies? Hollywood supposedly supports a racial inclusion, but the characters remain as white as the writers' rooms and the exceptions are still too rare to be anywhere near the norm. And Hollywood supposedly supports women's and gender equity, but plainly not only exploits but exasperates the hyper sexualization and objectification of women. And if Hollywood is so supposedly hyper liberal, why are bad guys in action movies so often based on anti Muslim stereotypes? And why do the good guys suggest that torturing suspects actually works? Do all these liberal Hollywood people leave their politics at home? Make no mistake about it, Harvey Weinstein is at fault for his behaviors and the climate he created in his companies and in his industry. And at the same time, Hollywood is responsible for its long-standing hypocrisy and double standard on issues of equity and justice. Just like Donald Trump is responsible in some way for having gotten us all to surface and scrutinize these issues in new ways. And hopefully that means Hollywood and all of us will change for the better. Okay, so I want you all to pay attention, because what they're initially saying in this article is that Weinstein's downfall came because Trump was already accused by 17 women right before the election, and then he was still elected. Okay, and there was a lot of scrutiny against Trump because of that. So then when Harvey Weinstein, the unelected president of Hollywood, as they call him, once he started being accused, well, they had no choice but to do something about it. And also, let's not forget that I told you all that there were at least 82 women that came forward to accuse Harvey Weinstein. Now, there were more women, but only 82 of them were brave enough to come forward. Okay, I want you all to pay attention. With that all being said. Okay, so Weinstein and Donald Trump, friends. Epstein and Weinstein, friends. Epstein and Trump, friends. Trump and Prince Andrew, friends. All of these people have been accused of being sexual deviants to some degree, including Trump himself. Let's not forget the accusations against Trump by a woman who said she was 13 years old when Trump did what to her? Now, for those of you who follow the backup channel, which I haven't been on in a minute, you may remember that I went over the paperwork, the court documents for that. Okay? So I just want y'all to pay attention. Now, with that all being said, let's talk about Jean-Luc Brunel, who also was a friend of Epstein's. That's him right there. Now, he's now deceased, just so you know. He was found hanged in jail. Alleged victims of Jean-Luc Brunel, who was awaiting trial on child sex offenses, said that they were robbed of justice. Do y'all hear this? Now, why doesn't everybody know about this man? And that he too was in jail for the same thing as Epstein, very similar charges. And then he too turned up deceased. Do you all think this is just a coincidence and the same manner that Epstein allegedly took his life, according to the fake reports that I clearly don't believe? A French modeling agent. I want y'all to hear this. This is all so nefarious. A French modeling agent accused of procuring more than 1,000 women and girls for Jeffrey Epstein has been found dead in his Paris prison cell while waiting to go on a trial for child sex offenses. Alleged victims of Jean-Luc Brunel said that they had been robbed of justice and closure after he apparently hanged himself. Prison guards who found Brunel at about 1 a.m. were unable to revive him. Y'all really think this man did it to himself like Epstein? Y'all think this is a coincidence? The suspected suicide has echoes of the death of his friend, the American financier Epstein, who deleted himself in New York in a jail in 2019 before he was due to stand trial on child sex trafficking charges. Yeah, both of them died before they could even face trial. Now, why would that be? Was it because they were going to get up on the stand themselves and testify and disclose or to reveal the people that were clients? That's certainly what I think. Virginia Giuffre, who said she was trafficked around the world by Epstein and accused the Duke of York of sexual abuse, said Brunel's death ends another chapter. Giuffre gave evidence against Brunel, who she alleges abused her and countless other girls. I want you all to pay attention. She said, I'm disappointed that I wasn't able to face him in a final trial to hold him accountable, but gratified that I was able to testify in person last year to keep him in prison. Brunel is alleged to have been a key player in Epstein's international PDF file ring, and is said to have used his position to exploit and abuse young models. He was also a close friend to Ghislaine Maxwell, the disgraced British socialite who was convicted in December in New York over her role in the trafficking network of Epstein. Thesia Huisman, a Dutch former model who said she was raped by Brunel in 1991 when she was 18, and who gave evidence to French investigators, said she was shocked by his death and angry that her alleged abuser had not been better guarded. Although he was categorized as a vulnerable inmate at La Santé prison in South Paris or Southern Paris, he was not regarded as an suicide risk. She says, I feel anger that he was not more closely supervised. It sounded like what happened to Epstein. It sounds suspicious, she said. I have been fighting for so long, together with other survivors of Brunel. It is difficult to think I won't get that moment in court, together with all of the other victims. That would have been justice, finally, and also closure. All of a sudden, that's been taken away from us. That is not fair. It feels like it is unfinished. Others were also quick to draw comparisons with Epstein's death in jail. Okay, Nasir Afzal, a former chief prosecutor of the northwest of England who targeted Asian grooming gangs, tweeted saying, Jean-Luc Brunel has committed suicide. He was accused of procuring young girls for Epstein to abuse. He was awaiting trial in France for sexual abuse. Now, I'm no conspiracy theorist, but that's what he said. He said, I'm no conspiracy theorist, but. Okay, and he left it at that. Now, I find this all very interesting. Like I told y'all, listen, I want you all to pay attention because I have been absolutely doing a deep dive down the rabbit hole to find all of this information for you guys. And I hope that you all appreciate it. Okay, please pay attention because a lot of this stuff you absolutely are hearing here first. Okay. With that all being said, Nicole has gifted 5 memberships to the Queen's channel. Thank you, beloved. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. And everybody put fire emojis in the chat for Nicole for being so generous. Okay. And you all thank her for gifting these memberships. Okay. So with that all being said, Daryl Jackson says, Queen really doesn't understand the nature of these certain people. Yes, I do. Yes, I absolutely do. You see, I had read a book titled The Iceman Inheritance. And that book told me just about everything I need to know if I didn't already know enough. It told me everything I need to know, beloved, about those people. So please pay attention, honey. The Queen is in the know. Now, with that all being said, I mean, none of this stuff shocks me. It may be shocking to some of you, but for those of you who've been following me since 2020, I used to talk about this stuff all the time in detail with a whole lot more information that no longer is allowed on YouTube. And that's probably one of the reasons for my shadow banning and also those videos being removed. Okay. Maybe I'll post some of that stuff on Rumble for you guys because they don't have you, censored over there. Now, Carrie Otis, an American supermodel and former face of brands such as Guess and Calvin Klein, has accused another top modeling figure, Gerald Marie, the former European boss of the leading agency Elite, of repeatedly raping her after she moved to Paris in 1986. Marie was married to Linda Evangelista, okay, the supermodel from 1987 to 1993. There's no suggestion that she knew about the alleged rapes at the time. Otis is one of 15 women, almost all former models, who have come forward as part of a criminal investigation opened into Marie in France. He denies all allegations made against him. Okay, all of these people have ties. She said, it makes me feel so angry for the survivors. There's a sense of exhaustion. The system is not what it should be. It is letting people pull a Houdini act. Y'all know who Houdini is, right? The reality is Brunel is emblematic of a much bigger problem. I think it is a really hard day for survivors. There's a lack of justice in our current system, Otis says. The Paris prosecutor's office said police had opened an investigation into Brunel's death. A prison union source said guards would normally carry out up to 6 patrols at night of the wing on which he was being held. Brunel started out as a scout and was involved in the careers of numerous models who went on to become household names, including Christy Turlington and the actress Sharon Stone. However, allegations of abuse had swirled around him since the late 80s. His friendship with Epstein and Maxwell, the late financier's former girlfriend, dates back to the 90s. Brunel flew on Epstein's private jet, nicknamed the Lolita Express, at least 25 times, according to flight logs. Others who had traveled on the plane include the former American presidents Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. Again, their names come up. In 2004, Brunel set up MC2 Model Management in Florida with $1 million funding from Epstein. Giuffre, who settled her civil lawsuit for sexual abuse against Prince Andrew, later alleged that the agency was a cover for trafficking. I don't find that interesting. Giuffre, known as Virginia Roberts at the time, also said that Brunel was one of a number of men that she was ordered to sleep with by Maxwell when she was just a teenager. She claimed in a 2015 court affidavit that Epstein had bragged that he had slept with over 1,000 of Brunel's girls. And here's a picture of them on a flight together, just to show. Okay. Y'all see that? That's them on the flight, honey. I find it all interesting. Thank you, Alejandro, for your contribution to the channel, beloved. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. So y'all see how these people have been covering up stuff, okay, for quite some time now. Okay, please pay attention. They have been covering up stuff for decades. They are alleged to have included 12-year-old triplets. Y'all listen to this. From Paris, from a Paris housing estate who were flown in or flown out to America by Brunel as a birthday present for Epstein. Triplets. Sigrid McCrawley, a lawyer who represents Giuffre and who had accompanied her to Paris to give evidence against Brunel, said, "It is devastating to Virginia and all the survivors that Brunel will not be tried for his crimes and held accountable. But as we said, when Jeffrey Epstein cowardly took himself out, for the women who have stood up and called for accountability from law enforcement around the world, it is not how these men died, but how they lived and the damage they caused to so many. The fight to seek truth and justice goes on." Do you all really think these men took their own lives? Think about all the people turning up dead that have turned up dead during Jeffrey Epstein's case. Jeffrey Epstein turned up dead. Brunel turned up dead. Now Virginia Giuffre turns up dead months ago when the case gets reinvigorated and people are asking more questions. His lawyer now dead. Could be from his age or health issues, I don't know, but it's all very suspicious. And then let's not forget the 2 other gentlemen that I told you all about days ago who were tied to Epstein, and they had accusations against them, and they also turned up dead. When Epstein was briefly jailed in Florida in 2008 after pleading guilty to procuring a child for prostitution, Brunel allegedly visited him 70 times. 70 times. That's a whole lot. After years of avoiding justice, the law finally seemed to catch up with the Frenchman in December of 2020, when he was arrested at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris as he boarded a flight to Dakar in Senegal to go on a holiday. He was indicted for rape of a minor over 15 years old and the sexual harassment of 2 other women and placed in pretrial detention. Since 2019, Brunel was also being investigated for his alleged links to Epstein's trafficking enterprise, but he turned up dead. See, this is all given, ties, connecting the dots, putting the pieces of the puzzle together. Okay, this seems like a whole network of this stuff was going on. And then slowly but surely, the people that were in charge of the network are tied to the network in different ways, turn up dead after they've been arrested. Now, why would they turn up dead after they've been arrested? Well, because they knew where all the bones were buried. And likely they were going to start talking. Maybe they wanted everybody to go down, not just them. Maybe they were going to pull a Nino Brown. Okay, and stand up and start pointing out everybody who had anything to do with it. He had maintained his innocence, and his lawyer said that he felt a deep sense of injustice at his incarceration. French investigators, however, are believed to have spoken to more than 500 alleged victims and witnesses. Over 500 victims and witnesses. Please pay attention. They include Husman, who has written a book about her ordeal and felt that nothing happened after she originally said that she had been raped by Brunel. She described his death as hugely disappointing, but hopes his arrest at least sends a message that if you are a predator, if you do these things, that you won't get away with it. She added that, I thought I was going to see him in a courtroom one day. I would have said to him that he took something from me that I will never get back. Since the moment I came forward as a whistleblower in the case, I have been fighting for other victims to show them that it is always good to come forward. It will empower you. Don't stay silent. Okay, so y'all hear this. This is all just so sad. And you know, another thing that I find interesting is fashion mogul Peter Nygard. Remember I told you all that nobody was talking about Peter Nygard, who was much more nefarious than Diddy, and everybody just want to talk about Diddy. Okay, include me, but I did talk about Peter Nygard as well. Okay, so let's talk about it, because Peter Nygard, do you all know that he also has ties to the Prince of York, i.e. Prince Andrew, the Duke of York? Yeah, okay. He also had ties to this man, which I find interesting because we already know he had ties to Jeffrey Epstein. So why would the Duke of York be hanging out with all these people that have been accused of sex crimes? Okay, just think about that. Fashion mogul arrested in Canada in 2020 and was awaiting trial for sex trafficking charges. U.S. prosecutors say that he committed crimes for decades in California and the Bahamas. Alleged victims include girls as young as 14. Prince Andrew once stayed at Nygard's Bahamas resort in 2000 with former wife Sarah Ferguson and their children. The prince faces no allegations connected to Nygard and says that he has never been his friend or associate and denies wrongdoing. So he was never his friend or associate, but yet he took his wife and children to stay at the man's house. Make that make sense. To stay at his resort? Why would he stay at his resort? Don't you find that interesting? Because I certainly do. Okay, I certainly do. So anyway, like I told you all, this is a deep rabbit hole. So let's go through this one more time, just for kicks. Because Trump keeps lying. He's just a liar who lies. So you have Trump connected to Epstein. You have Trump connected to Prince Andrew, who was allegedly a client of Epstein's. And there you see him with Virginia Giuffre when she was underage, and also with Ghislaine Maxwell. Then, there he is with Prince Andrew again, whom he said he didn't know, by the way. And then you have Epstein, Weinstein, and Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, mind you, this was when they were at a party. I almost forgot about this picture. At this picture right here, where they're all seen together, they were actually at Princess Beatrice's 18th birthday party, which was hosted by none other than Prince Andrew. And then you have Trump with Weinstein again. You have Bill Clinton, who's been tied to Epstein, and whose picture, this painting, was found in Epstein's house. Do y'all see how I'm connecting these dots? I just want you all to pay attention. Okay, I just want you all to pay attention. Now, with that all being said, let's keep going, because yes, there is more, unfortunately. There is absolutely more. Likes up, everyone, please. Like and share. Peter Nygard, the tycoon sex offender with links to Prince Andrew. The Canadian found guilty of sex offenses once hosted the prince at his property in the Caribbean. To paraphrase Oscar Wilde, holidaying with one sexual predator might seem like a misfortune. Holidaying with two looks like carelessness. But alas, then, for Prince Andrew, once carefree, Air Miles Andy, sometimes the chum of Kazakh oligarchs and former friend of Jeffrey Epstein. But just when he thought his past might be done catching up to him, along comes Peter Nygard, a Canadian fashion tycoon and convicted sex offender. Around the time of Andrew's 40th birthday in 2000, the prince was photographed walking amicably with Nygard on holiday on the tycoon's property in the Caribbean, but he didn't know this man wasn't a friend or associate. Isn't that what he said? He was never a friend or associate. Another photo from the time shows his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, smiling happily alongside Nygard and their two young daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie. Let's not forget Beatrice's 18th birthday is where we have the picture of Ghislaine Maxwell, Harvey Weinstein, and Epstein. Okay. Not long before Nygard had reached an out-of-court settlement with 3 female former employees over accusations of sexual harassment is when these findings came out. Now, one 39-year-old woman recalled being summoned to Nygard's office only to find him in a state of undress, with his hands down the front of his pants, touching his cucumber. Nygard settled the claims by paying the women $18,500 while denying any wrongdoing. Okay, that was chump change for him. This man was a whole tycoon. There is no suggestion that either Andrew or the Duchess of York was aware of that, and Andrew has always denied being a friend or associate of the man once photographed with his daughters and on whose beach he once walked. I want y'all to pay attention. This reads like a Harlequin romance, and on whose beach he once walked. Oh, honey, this is juicy. Don't y'all think so? I got something even juicier for you later on. We're going to get into it. Okay? Judge Wood said the rabbit hole runs deep. Shaking my head. It absolutely does, beloved. Okay? Thank you for your insight into the topic and your contribution to the channel. Peace, love, and blessings. Honey, this is all nefarious. So that all being said, they deny all wrongdoings. Okay, well, if you're hanging out with one PDF file like Epstein, maybe you could try to run that by us, but he couldn't even do that because Virginia Giuffre said that he did things to her. Okay, so I think we know why Prince Andrew was hanging out with Epstein. Okay, and then to find that he was also hanging out with Nygard, and he can deny it all he wants, but the proof is in the pudding. Okay, and the devil is in the details. Please pay attention. Literally in this case. Now, there is no suggestion that either Andrew or the Duchess of York was aware of any of it. Please miss us with it. Okay. Speaking to a Canadian newspaper in May of 2000, Nygard had no doubt that the previous week had been an exciting one for his elderly mother, saying on Monday, George Bush came to visit. Well, what do you know? Y'all hear this? See how I'm connecting these dots? All these people's names that y'all keep hearing, y'all don't think these powerful, elite, wealthy people, politicians and the like, y'all don't think these people are on the list that Trump claims doesn't exist? Y'all don't think so? Well, let's continue. He said on Monday, George Bush came to visit. And then Thursday, Sarah Ferguson and Prince Andrew came over. She makes them tea. She loves it. She meets them all. This week, a Toronto court found him guilty of 4 counts of historic sexual assault, dating from the 1980s to the mid-2000s. And we're supposed to think that Prince Andrew didn't know anything about this, that Trump and Epstein and Weinstein, none of them knew anything about this man's dealings, please. Okay. 1980s to mid-2000s on women then aged between 16 and 28. 5 women testified that Nygard had sexually assaulted them, thus proving, the prosecution argued, a pattern of predatory behavior lasting from the 1980s to 2005. Nygard lured women into a secret wood-paneled bedroom in his Canadian office. It was furnished with a fireplace and well-stocked bar, accessed by sliding doors with no handles and automatic locks, and operated by Nygard himself from a keypad on the bedside table. Sounds like a fortress. I was a prisoner in that room, one of the victims testified. See what I'm saying? Definitely a fortress. The door sliding open is seared into my psyche, she says. Nygard's parents immigrated from Finland to Canada in 1952 and settled penniless in Manitoba. He once said that he grew up in a converted coal shed and he started out working as a management trainee in a department store. He went on to buy a small stake in a struggling clothes company with an $8,000 loan, turning it into a largely successful leisure and sportswear supplier. Okay. He later said that the secret to his success was perseverance. He also turned himself into a well-known and well-off Canadian success story, a flamboyant and wealthy eccentric who kept parrots in his office and filled the company lobby with bronze busts of himself. He was married once, briefly in his early 30s, to an in-house model about which he later said, I was burnt very, very young when I was married, and it just didn't feel good. And I think I've turned from that. One woman hired as his secretary in 1978 later reported that he continually harassed her and tried to grab her melons. She resigned 2 years later, not long after Winnipeg police charged Nygard with the rape of an 18-year-old. The charge was dropped after the woman refused to testify. And in 1980, a newspaper noted that there was a passion pit in his office with a mirrored ceiling and a sofa that turned into a bed at the push of a button. 7 years later, he bought an estate in Lyford Cay in the Bahamas and renamed his property Nygard Cay. You see, he had his own island exclusively, just like Epstein. He set about turning it into a Vegas-style private resort, extravagant in its vulgarity. Over 150,000 square feet of Mayan-themed living space. It included a casino, a disco with underfloor cameras, and a 6,000 square foot sauna. In the gardens, stone cobras hiss steam at sunset. Fake volcanoes threw out dry ice, and a flock of peacocks roamed among giant statues of nude women. Sounds like a paradise for a freak. In the human aquarium, topless women swam around wearing mermaid tails. Y'all hear this? This is all so salacious. I mean, this sounds like a movie, right? Women swimming around topless in mermaid tails. Ace Thunder said secret room gives Thomas Jefferson and Sally Heming. Exactly does. And I want you to pay attention, beloved, because speaking of Sally Heming, don't you remember how Oprah called her Thomas Jefferson's mistress? I mean, the nerve of her, the disrespect. That woman was forced and raped. Okay, that's what she was. She was raped by that man. Okay, he was her owner. And Oprah had the nerve to call her a mistress, like she was low down and dirty and doing stuff behind somebody else's back. Anyway, guests included. Oh, what do you know? Oprah Winfrey. Y'all hear that? Guests including Oprah Winfrey, Bo Derek, Robert De Niro, and Sean Connery. Do y'all want to know who's on the list or not? Okay, do y'all want to know who's on the list or not? Okay, do y'all want to know who's on the list or not? Were these people on Epstein's list? Because here we have Oprah hanging out with Peter Nygard and his vulgarities. But we also know that Oprah was quite the friend of Harvey Weinstein. Okay, let us not forget. So do you think it's just a coincidence that she's hanging out with these two freaks? Okay, do you think so? And why she's never come out publicly and said anything negative about Harvey Weinstein? And when she was asked years ago, what did she say? Oh, if we spend it on Weinstein, the moment will be lost. What does that even mean? Okay, what does that even mean at the end of the day? Spend what? Time talking about him? See, she tried to do the same thing Trump's trying to do as far as I'm concerned. She just did it on a smaller scale. She tried to just gaslight and deflect away from the issue at hand, which was the fact that she was a good friend, albeit possibly one of the besties of Harvey Weinstein. Okay? So I absolutely believe that Oprah's name is on that list that they claim doesn't exist. In fact, I believe all the people that I'm mentioning to you, now I can't verify this, I can't substantiate it, it could be a conspiracy theory, but in my opinion, these people that I'm mentioning, I would just think that they might be on the list. But let me continue. Guests including Oprah Winfrey, Bo Derek, Robert De Niro, and Sean Connery attended parties to promote Nygard's clothing brand. Not bad for an immigrant boy, he was fond of saying. Okay, I want y'all to pay attention. Yet alongside the Mayan-themed glitz, Nygard's predatory behavior like Epstein's carried on in plain sight. And so it carried on in plain sight. So you all really think that these people that were hanging out with these two freaks didn't know what the hell they were doing and what they had going on about the S trafficking and people that weren't of age? You think they didn't know about this? Well, of course they knew. Now, they could say whatever they want, but I absolutely believe they all knew everything and that they all were involved in it. That's just what I think. But hey, what do I know? A 2000 interview with him in a Canadian newspaper described him as a Playboy fashion model who knows women. He was the big Finn with a Lion King mane, sole owner of a $300 million plus empire, and held in a 1998 book, Titans, as one of the new merit-based Canadian establishments. The journalist noted that Nygard's hair was thinning and that his jacket was covered in dandruff. Nasty freak. Y'all hear this? Nevertheless, he threw an annual Oscars party said to be a hot ticket that attracted celebrities, including Jane Seymour and Sybil Shepherd. Y'all still want me to keep naming names? His office had framed photographs of him meeting Mikhail Gorbachev. Really? This is all interesting. And Dudley Moore, the latter one of his bohemian neighbors. He traveled between homes all over the world on a private jet named N-Force. The letter N / the word force, equipped with a pole for in-flight pole dancing, and surrounded himself with an entourage of women, some of whom described themselves as paid girlfriends. He modeled himself as Hugh Hefner, on Hugh Hefner, the founder of Playboy, another person who was never brought to justice, who definitely, in my opinion, was doing some nefarious things. And is thought to have about 10 children with 7 different women. He once joked that his attempt at celibacy was the worst 20 minutes of his life. I love my children, he said. I'm such a good daddy to them. Here's a picture of him and his children. Y'all see that? This is all crazy. I mean, who knew when I went digging I would find all this stuff? Please pay attention. In 2010, a Canadian TV program spoke to a former stewardess on his private jet who recalled a trip when Nygard, accompanied by a posse of topless women, flew into a rage with staff, yelling, "You're garbage. I am God." By 2014, Canadian Business Magazine estimated that Nygard was worth about $750 million. But by early 2020, multiple allegations had surfaced of him luring girls from the age of 14 to the Caribbean, where a civil claim brought by 10 women alleged that he ran an S trafficking ring. The same year, the New York Times reported that over the past 40 years, Nygard had been sued or reported to the authorities by 9 women in Canada and California, but was never convicted. Nygard always denied the allegations and said the women were motivated by money. The New York Times interviewed many who spoke of rape, rugging with a D, sexual assault, and harassment. Some had taken place in the Bahamas where Nygard was accused of bribing local officials. Why did they charge him with a RICO? Anybody wondering? He threatened or sued media outlets investigating him just like Trump. Just like Trump. You all see the stark comparisons here that I'm putting together. I just really need you all to pay attention. Okay, please pay attention. You heard it here first, folks. He threatened or sued media outlets investigating him just like Trump. Used his vast, and that's not them saying that in the article. I'm saying that because it is just like Trump. Okay, used his vast wealth to launch endless delaying tactics to stall lawsuits and practice what one judge referred to as scorched earth tactics in relation to one legal dispute over child support. At one point in 2021, he stood accused of rape or sexual assault by at least 57 women. This is in 2021. Now, mind you, he had already been accused of these things in the early 2000s. So if you think that people like Trump, Epstein, Weinstein, Brunel, Oprah, Bo Derek, Robert De Niro, and all these other people that I just named didn't know what the hell he was doing, think again. Because you don't think they heard about him getting into trouble in 2000? You don't think they knew about what was going on his jet? And all these women coming out with all these allegations over periods of decades? Louis Bacon, a billionaire hedge fund manager, there's another name, please pay attention, and neighbor of Nygard's in the Bahamas, became embroiled in a bitter legal dispute with him and accused him of raping teenage girls. Now, the New York Times interviewed dozens of women and former employees who told of how victims were lured to Nygard's home with the prospect of modeling jobs or simply a brief taste of a luxurious lifestyle. Y'all hear this? So Louis Bacon, this man was a billionaire and a hedge fund manager. Pay attention, because is this man still alive or did they get rid of him too? Okay, I have questions. Let me just double check. Because it's funny how these people who come out and expose these people, the people that I've named that have done the exposing, or the people that could expose, turned up dead. Don't y'all find it interesting? Yeah, he's still living. He's 68 years old. 68 years old. Shout out to him for exposing this freak. Okay? I'm going to put his picture up in just a second. Likes up, everyone. Please don't forget to like and share. I'm bringing y'all the receipts as nobody else could. Please pay attention. Now, with that all being said, this stuff sounds a whole lot more juicy than the stuff Diddy was accused of. He kind of looks like Patrick Swayze, don't you think? That's who he puts me in the mind of. Louis Bacon. So anyway, but let's continue. Said they were promised modeling jobs or a brief taste of the luxurious lifestyle. He preys on poor girls. He preys on poor people's little girls. This is what Natasha Taylor, who worked there for 5 years, said. 6 former employees recalled being recruited at shops, clubs, and restaurants, having been offered Sunday afternoon pamper parties with free massages and manicures and unlimited alcohol. You see, I want you all to pay attention to something. This is what I need you all to pay attention to. These are the things that they were trying to accuse Diddy of unsuccessfully because it was lies and it was BS. Okay? And I'm going to prove that to you later on in another video. But with that all being said, I want you all to pay attention. He had pamper parties with free massages and manicures and unlimited alcohol. And it wasn't just him and some of his women, like the freak-offs with Diddy. It was other people there. It was into this man's world that stepped Prince Andrew, a man possibly more susceptible than most to having bronze bust of oneself about the place. When he visited Nygard K with the Duchess of York and his girls a year after he visited his friend Jeffrey Epstein on his private island elsewhere in the Caribbean, his naval career was coming to a close and his future career was uncertain. For Nygard, such visits were useful promotional material, and something to brag about to reporters. After 40 years of rumor, denial, obfuscation, and payoffs, Nygard has been imprisoned since his arrest at his home in Winnipeg in 2020. Let's not forget that this is the same man who was trying to pay black women, offering black women $500 measly for their DNA because he was having stem cell injections. He and his girlfriend, who was about 23 years old, who was also arrested. Now, this is real crazy. He denied all the allegations, including rape, describing it as the type of conduct that I know that I could never do. I never would do. His lawyer did not rule out an appeal, even as his client faces further charges, which he denies, of sexual assault in 2 other Canadian provinces and yet more offenses in New York, for which the U.S. is seeking his extradition. One of his sons, Kai Bickle, repulsed by what he had seen and suspected of his father's behavior, renounced his surname and inheritance and spent years secretly helping the U.S. and Canadian authorities to investigate his father's crimes. Now, I want you all to pay attention. Shout out to him. Okay, shout out to him because this young man was telling on his own father, denounced his last name and even his own inheritance. Okay, now how many people you think would do that? I can tell you, definitely not many. Definitely not many. Why did this man's own son expose him? Let me put his picture up on the screen. His own son. Okay. Nicole said, Queen is the best at this. Thank you, beloved. And I don't have to tell lies and make up, scenarios or push false narratives or embellish the stories. The true stories, if you do the research, are salacious and juicy enough. Okay. That's his son right there. Shout out to him, Kai Bickle, who denounced his own father, gave evidence of his wrongdoings and nefarious behavior, and even denounced his own inheritance. He said, we have been engaged in a brutal battle against my father and his enablers. This is what he told the Daily Mail in 2021. He has become my arch nemesis. I no longer regard him as my father. He's a monster. Retiring, Nygard said in 2000, is perhaps for enjoying those things you never had a chance to enjoy, which is not my problem. You'd like to go on a cruise, spend time with your grandkids, build a house. I have done those things all my life. Not anymore. Okay. Y'all hear that? So what do you all think about this? See, this is why you can't blame people's children for the actions of the father. Okay. People going around here dragging Diddy's children. All right. Dragging his children, even his twin daughters, trying to get people not to support their clothing line and all of that. You can't blame people's children for what the father does. At the end of the day, children don't ask to be here, and they definitely don't get to choose their parents. And that's just a fact. Okay, that is just a fact. But, there's still more. This isn't the end of it. This isn't the end of it, beloveds. Likes up, everyone. Please don't forget to like and share. Ladies and the Trump, the making of an sexual predator. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. Now, here's what they say. Using comprehensive firsthand interviews, transcripts, and court reports, a disturbing new book, All the President's Women, discovers at least 67 separate accusations of inappropriate behavior, including 26 instances of unwanted sexual contact by U.S. President Donald Trump. Now, do y'all see why he doesn't want to put out that Epstein list? It doesn't really matter what the media writes, as long as you've got a young and beautiful piece of ass. That's a quote from Donald Trump in 1991 in an interview with Esquire magazine. That's what he said. It doesn't really matter what the media writes, as long as you've got a young and beautiful piece of ass. But this is the president. Backstage at the Oscar de la Renta fashion show in New York in the early 1990s, Trump suddenly appeared in the dressing room and all the teenage models grabbed their robes. Okay, now, ladies, drop them, he said as he threw his arms open. He strode around the dressing room, oblivious to the young girl's obvious discomfort. But Trump was not alone. His then pregnant wife, Ivana, trailed unhappily behind him. This was the first time 21-year-old model Nakina Carr encountered Trump, but it would prove to be far from the last. She spoke about her experiences for the first time in an interview for All the President's Women. Although the president continues to assert that he is untouchable, this book, published by Hachette, reveals many new examples of the president's penchant for touching women inappropriately. All of them are alarming. As the book relates, Trump's hands, the size of which would later become the subject of significant public curiosity, were infamous for other reasons back then. He was gropey. He had his hands in the most inappropriate places always, is what Carr says. When he would kiss someone, the hand went to either the hip or the butt. An unwelcome visitor backstage at a lingerie show, Trump is said to have moved his hands all over a model's melons under the pretense of inspecting the fabric of her bra. Subtitled Donald Trump and the Making of a Predator, the book was co-written by former executive editor of the National Enquirer, Barry Levine, and France 24 journalist Monique L. Faizy, author of God and Country, how evangelicals have become America's new mainstream. It pulls no punches in its detailed portrait of the many alleged sexual improprieties and assaults of the 45th American president, and now the 47th. You all hear this? I find it all so interesting, but let me continue. Now, it goes on to say Levine approached El Faizi with a book proposal, and she admits that her first instinct was to turn it down, saying, I did not want to spend my time living with all these horrible, disgusting stories of his disrespect, she said. But I read Ta-Nehisi Coates' book, Between the World and Me, and that book really got me thinking about complicity and how when you aren't actively confronting things and calling them out, you yourself become a part of them. And I want you all to remember that. You see, because some people get upset about those of us who call out the wrongdoers, who call out the liars, and people who just put out false stories and mis and disinformation. Some people get mad, but you see, the reason you need to put it out is because if you don't, then you're a party to it. Okay? And that's just a fact. It's not about hate. It's about telling the truth that some people don't want told. Now, that all being said, she goes on to say, if I allowed myself to ignore it, do I then become complicit in silencing the women and allowing grape culture to continue? I realized I had to overcome my own discomfort in order to be part of the fight. Seeing all these women's stories together made me realize that Trump was systematically preying on women. You all hear this? Now, I'm going to show you a post from Trump in 2016. Okay? Trump is such a liar who lies, and he just thinks that people are just so stupid that they're going to continue to believe his bullshit. Okay? That's what he absolutely thinks. He thinks that people will continue to believe his bullshit. But slowly but surely, people are waking up. And I mean his base. Because we all know that he's had them fooled for quite some time at this point. But now they're all turning against him when they have realized that he is simply a liar who enjoys lying and who tries, sadly, to use reverse psychology, which you have to be kind of smart to do. And so he's not very good at it. Okay, please pay attention. With that all been said, let me share this on the screen. This is his post right here from 2016 on X, formerly known as Twitter. It says, nothing ever happened with any of these women. Totally made up nonsense to steal the election. Nobody has more respect for women than me. This said by the man who was caught on a hot mic say that he would grab women by the ussy. But he has respect. Nobody has more respect for women than me, he says. I absolutely cannot with his lies. And so anyway, goes on to say, like Carr, a number of the women cited in the book were going public with their Trump ordeals for the first time. Many of these women said they felt a sense of shame over their encounters with Trump. They say women blame themselves and society blames the women. It's their fault for not screaming. It's their fault for being paralyzed by fear, says El Faizi. I think that it's very hard to know what you would do in the same situation. But you realize it has nothing to do with these individual women. They just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Trump was going to prey on somebody that day, and if it wasn't them, it would have just been someone else. This is about male predatory behavior and not about anything the women did. The first woman in Trump's life and the one who helped to shape his stereotypical attitude towards women was his mother, Mary. Mary suffered complications after the birth of her fifth child, Robert, and she was forced to stay in hospital for a prolonged time. This absence came at a crucial development stage for Trump, then a toddler. When she was back at home, she was the perfect housewife, and her real estate mogul husband, Fred, was the traditional breadwinner. Fred, Trump's father, let's not forget that he fled Germany, okay, after being accused of owning a brothel and selling rugs, okay? And I'm talking about with the D in front. She was an ideal woman, according to her son. Trump's motto seemed to be never surrender, always hit back, and then claim victory no matter what the reality. Isn't that exactly what he does? He said claim victory no matter what the reality. This is a man who not only objectifies and diminishes women, he openly brags about how easy it is to actually assault them. Humiliation is central to how he relates to women. He focuses his predatory behavior on women who are much younger and less powerful. Speaking at a 2017 Golden Globes, Meryl Streep talked about his instinct to humiliate, saying, when it's modeled by someone in a public platform, it filters down into everyone's life because it gives permission for others to do the same. So when Trump said, grab him by the ussy, he was giving men the all go to do it. Is that what he was doing? Because that's what it sounds like. Disrespect invites disrespect. Violence incites violence. When the powerful use their position to bully others, we all lose, Meryl Streep said. The 1980s for Trump were all about models, many of them quite young. Trump eventually set up his own agency, Trump Model Management. And from 1996 to 2015, he owned the Miss Universe pageant. The connection to Jeffrey Epstein, the late American financier, was made in the 1990s. Now, in the United States, dozens of Epstein's victims say they were sexually abused as part of an sex trafficking ring orchestrated by Epstein, who allegedly deleted himself in prison. French police launched an sexual abuse investigation into Epstein in August. Then Jean-Luc Brunel, a French modeling agent suspected of procuring young women for the disgraced billionaire mogul, was formally accused of sexual assault. I think a lot of men have dodged a bullet with Epstein's death. And yes, Trump was definitely one of them, says El-Fazi. Describing his friend, Trump said Epstein was a terrific guy. He's lots of fun to be with. It's even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. Well, I told you all that quote from Trump days ago. All the president's women also examines Trump's relationship with religion. Trump clings to religion and blatantly uses it to court certain U.S. constituencies. He has often added his own personal pastor, Paula White, to the White House administration, saying, I don't think there is any sincerity to this religion. This is what El-Fazi says. He knows if he gets the evangelicals, he can win, and they are an easy crowd for him to get. But I think it is cynicism on both sides. It is a craven association for the Christian community as well. Trump clearly does not share their values, but many of them will say that they don't care, that Trump is doing what they need him to do, and that's enough for them to not care. Now, the book in broader terms also looks at the effect of Trump's presidency on America. He has both regressed the country and galvanized it. His statements on abortion have left many worried that the seminal 1973 Roe versus Wade legislation ruling may be revisited, even overturned. And it was, so they were absolutely right. And I think that he is affecting women globally too. He is fighting things that relate to women in the UN as well. But El-Fazi says Trump's actions have also served to invigorate women and that his election was a catalyst for the #MeToo movement. You see, his election was a catalyst to the movement because, as I told you previously, earlier in this broadcast, that once Trump was accused of all these sexual harassment, abuse, and all these things, and harassment, all this stuff, or whatever, assaults and all of that, and then he still got elected. When Harvey Weinstein got called out, well, they had no choice but to go ahead and do something about it. They couldn't just let it all just ride. They said we have a record-breaking 6 female presidential candidates, and I don't think that's a coincidence. He has spurred women into political activism when they were perhaps complacent. She recognizes that this book is a difficult read, but she believes it imperative that people confront Trump's unpalatable past. This is the president of the United States. We cannot ignore his behavior. We have to look at it squarely in the eye to know exactly what we're dealing with. It is too easy to turn a blind eye. Okay? I want you all to pay attention. Y'all hear this? And she is absolutely right. Okay? She is absolutely right as far as I'm concerned. No lies detected. And no lies detected whatsoever. Now, let's continue. So here's the thing. Did you all know that Jeffrey Epstein actually fled the United States? And I want you all to pay attention because here's the thing. Remember how they wouldn't give Diddy a trial? And you may wonder, why the hell does she keep bringing up Diddy? Well, I'm glad you asked because here's the thing. I want you all to pay attention to how they treat people who are drenched in melanin so differently than they treat people who aren't drenched in melanin. Okay? While everyone has melanin, that's a fact. Everyone isn't drenched in it. There's a certain segment of the population that is, and y'all know who I'm talking about. People who look like me. So with that all being said, don't you all know that Epstein actually fled the country? Yeah, he absolutely did. He went to Israel. Hold on. Let's get into it. Because I didn't even know this until I started digging. Okay, I started really digging. Now listen to this. It has been reported that Jeffrey Epstein traveled to Israel in April of 2008. Remember, that's when he had that first allegation or when he was convicted. Okay, or he took the plea deal. He went to Israel and met with research scientists and visited different Israeli military bases. Why would he be going to military bases? Was he in the Mossad, perhaps? He also applied for a second passport in order to avoid conflicting visa stamps when traveling to Israel and certain Arab states, including Jordan and Saudi Arabia. Now think about this. Just the other day, I showed you all the proof and receipts, and I'll show them again for those who missed it. But I showed you all the proof and receipts about how Jeffrey Epstein had applied for numerous passports. Why do y'all think that he needed all these different passports? See there? 1983, 1985, 1986, 1993. Why did he need 2005? Why did he need 2016? Okay, why did he need all these passports? Okay. Why would anyone need to apply for that many passports? Well, I think we all know now. So regarding the claim that Epstein fled to Israel, conservative commentators Tucker Carlson and Sagar Enjeti discussed the theory in a recent podcast. Okay, in early 2008, it was open talk in New York society that Epstein moved all of his assets to offshore accounts and fled to Israel to escape his charges. I want y'all to pay attention. This man was clearly a flight risk. Why would he have been granted bail? Why would he have been granted bail? Now, however, they say Epstein was somehow working. There's accusations, mind you, that Epstein was somehow working for Israel or the Mossad, running a blackmail ring that has been categorically denied by former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. Okay. Well, why would he admit to it that it was true? Would he really come out and tell us that it was true? I absolutely think Epstein was doing just that. Bennett stated that Epstein never worked for the Mossad and called the accusation a lie being peddled by prominent online personalities such as Tucker Carlson, pretending they know things they don't. That's what he said. Yeah, I think he was working for the Mossad. I absolutely think so. And I think that further, okay, that's why he needed all those passports when he was coming and going. Okay, that's what I want y'all to pay attention to. But here's the thing. Tucker Carlson claimed that the deceased child trafficker Epstein was working for the Israeli government and that every single person in Washington, D.C. thinks the exact same thing. He said, I had never met anyone who didn't think that. I don't know any of them that hate Israel, but no one feels that they can say that that they can say that. Okay, now Carson also suggested that the disgraced financier may have been running a blackmail operation as he discussed new information recently released by the Department of Justice. A 2-page memo from the DOJ and FBI said that Epstein had no client list and that the convicted PDF file took his own life shortly before going to trial. All they did was tick off MAGA, okay? The faithful MAGA crew. Speaking about the development at a Turning Point USA summit in Tampa, Carson slammed the findings of the administration, saying the real question is, why was he doing this? On whose behalf? And where did the money come from, he said. Same question I had and still have. I think the real answer is Jeffrey Epstein was working on behalf of Intel Services, probably not American, he said. And we have every right to ask, on whose behalf was he working? Now, no one's allowed to say that the foreign government is Israel because we have been somehow cowed into thinking that's naughty. There is nothing wrong with saying that. There is nothing hateful about saying that, Carson said. There's nothing wrong with saying that, he says. And if you have the right to expect your government will not act against your interest, and you have the right to demand that foreign governments not be allowed to act against your interest. So I'm sure they don't like Carson saying this. Carson has become one of the big names on the list of MAGA luminaries who are irate over the DOJ's conclusions and previously insisted there was an obvious reason why Attorney General Pam Bondi was covering up the client list. I think we all know what that reason is now. In addition, footage capturing Epstein's final hours, also released by the DOJ, has fueled further conspiracy theories after it appeared to have a minute of footage missing. A digital clock visible on the bottom left corner of the video jumps from 11:58 to 12 a.m. Officials have not yet offered an explanation for the time gap. Well, you know, they said it was a glitch, is what I think Bondi came out and said. Came out and said that it was a whole glitch. Okay, I want y'all to pay attention. I want you all to pay attention. This is all so crazy. Reggie says, I love this channel. Hit the like button and show your application for the Queen's hard work. You mean your appreciation? Absolutely. Thank you, beloved. I appreciate you. Okay, Reggie says exclusive. You know what? This actually is an exclusive, isn't it? Okay. So with that all being said, hold on. I have one or two more things I want to pull up. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Listen, I have so many details on Trump and Epstein and other stuff that Trump's been doing. I can't even get to it all in this broadcast, so I'll have to talk about it another time. But listen to this. Ehud Barak met with Jeffrey Epstein dozens of times, flew on his private plane. Former prime minister visited disgraced financier and child abuser about 30 times in 2013 to 2017, including 2014 private flights in Florida. That's another name you should probably pay attention to, Ehud Barak. Now, he's a former prime minister, as I said. So Barak was among the list of names, including pioneering linguist and left-wing activist Noam Chomsky, longtime Bard College president Leon Bostein, and filmmaker Woody Allen. Isn't that something? So Woody Allen was hanging around Jeffrey Epstein. Now, why is that interesting? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Because Woody Allen has also been accused of doing things with people that are not of age. Are y'all getting it now? See, here's the thing. If you ask me, do we really need them to put out a list? Do we really need them to put out a list right now? Trump, you're not getting out of this. Now, listed in a newly uncovered private calendar for Epstein, the Wall Street Journal reported in the first part of its investigative series on the hugely influential Jewish donor who used his used his money to obscure what investigators uncovered years ago as an elaborate underage trafficking ring. Epstein met with thousands of people over his career, and the presence of their names does not itself indicate any evidence of misdeeds. They keep saying that, don't they? They keep saying that, but I have questions. According to the Wall Street Journal's Wednesday report on the calendar's contents, Barak visited Epstein about 30 times between 2013 and 2017 at his estates in Florida and New York, including a time in 2014 when the former Israeli premier flew with Epstein on his private aircraft from Palm Beach to Tampa, after which Epstein went on to New York. Barak said his wife and an Israeli security guard were also on that flight. Interesting. He said he flew with Epstein on his private jet or his private plane on one other occasion, also with his wife and guard. The meetings came well after Epstein's 2008 and 2009 conviction and sentencing for procuring underage people for prostitution. But Barak has maintained that he had no knowledge of Epstein's activities. This is what they all say. They all say they had no knowledge of Epstein's activities, but at the end of the day, Epstein was absolutely convicted between 2008 and 2009 and sentenced. So you mean to tell me they didn't know about that? Of course they did. It was all big news. Okay, it was all big news. How could they not? Their previously reported ties became an unexpected hot button issue in the 2019 election campaign in Israel after Epstein was arrested and later died in prison of an apparent suicide, but under mysterious circumstances that have led some to question the suicide determination. At the time, the 66-year-old Epstein was awaiting trial on trafficking charges following a Miami Herald investigation that uncovered his network, a whole network. But it's only supposed to be him and Ghislaine Maxwell. How is there a network if it's only Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell? And there's no list of anybody else being involved. Okay? That uncovered his network of sexual abuse and high-profile connections. High-profile connections, like the people that I named during this broadcast. I'm just curious. Is it any of those people? Barak, who entered a business deal with Epstein in 2015 to fund an Israeli startup years after the American financier served 18 months for solicitation, has called long-rumored allegations of trafficking by Epstein abhorrent and said that he had officially cut off all business ties with him. Sure you did. Just like Trump said that he and Weinstein were no longer friends, he never said they were friends. He said that he was never a fan of Weinstein. It's the same thing he said about Epstein. For Wednesday's Wall Street Journal report, Barak said Epstein appears to have been a terrible version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, describing a person who seemed intelligent, well-connected man with many interests from science to geopolitics. Barak said that over the years of meeting with Epstein at his various mansions, he never participated in any other inappropriate event with him and had never met him with girls or people not of age, not even with adult women in the context of any inappropriate behavior. Sure, sir, we believe you. I mean, isn't that what they all say? The former premier said that he first met Epstein in 2003 at an event attended by American dignitaries. American dignitaries. Epstein was at this event. Were some of these dignitaries on the list that doesn't exist? I have several questions. Okay, I have several questions. Through the late Israeli president and statesman, Shimon Peres. That's how he met them, through this person. The late Israeli president and statesman, Shimon Peres. Just so you know. The two arranged to meet at a later time in New York. I came to his house quite a few times with my wife. This is what Barak claimed, adding that he had met many interesting people at Epstein's home. Who were these interesting people? Maybe politicians, world leaders, celebrities, people who own big franchises. I'm just curious. One of those meetings between Epstein and Barak included Chomsky to discuss Israel's policies with regard to Palestinian issues and the international arena. This is what Chomsky told the Wall Street Journal. Epstein's calendar also featured other meetings with Barak, such as one that, and this is not Barack Obama, let me just remind you, okay? This is a former prime minister of Israel. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. met with him dozens of times. I find it all so nefarious. But anyway, goes on to say Epstein's calendar also featured other meetings with Barak, such as one that also included an executive at the consulting firm of former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. Y'all hear that? Now, I knew Henry Kissinger was nefarious, but I didn't know he had anything to do with Epstein or this other person, Barak. Both Chomsky and Ballstein, pay attention to the names, Chomsky and Ballstein, like Epstein and Weinstein, they also defended their decision to continue meeting with Epstein after his first trafficking convictions, with Chomsky saying that Epstein's prison time indicated a clean slate, and Ballstein invoking Bard's history of supporting prison rehabilitation programs. While Epstein did donate to Bard on occasion, Ballstein described the relationship to the Wall Street Journal as sadism on his part, because Epstein was frequently dangling philanthropic support that he would not commit to. That sounds like blackmail, just so we're clear. According to the reports, Epstein also had more than a dozen meetings with Ariane de Rothschild, the chief executive of the Rothschild Group of Swiss Jewish bankers, who married into the family and was the firm's chair at the time. De Rothschild herself is not Jewish, but the family has been a prime target of conspiracy theories for decades. I find that interesting that they brought up the Rothschilds, because remember that picture I showed you all? The picture that I said, where in the hell did this come from? Let me just pull it back up for those of you who missed it, if you just got in here late or what have you. Yeah, I find this all interesting. Let me just share my screen real quick. Likes up, everyone. Please don't forget to like and share. Remember, folks, you heard it here first. This picture right here. Y'all see that? Y'all see that? This is all nefarious. Okay, this is all nefarious. Now, with that all being said, see, I absolutely believe that many of these people named, more likely than not, had something to do with that list that they say doesn't exist. That's just my opinion. Hold on. Now let's go back to Woody Allen for a second. Because remember, Woody Allen has been tied to some of these people. Okay? Woody Allen has been tied to this man, Barak. Ehud Barak and Epstein. Allegedly, according to this report. So I find it interesting because here's the thing. Why is that interesting? Because Woody Allen, if anybody's name's on the list, I would expect that his would be. And that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. I'm speculating, of course. But the accusation, against Woody Allen by his adopted daughter, or he was accused of sexually abusing his adopted daughter, Dylan Farrow, when she was a little person. That accusation dates back to 1992 when Dylan was just 7 years old. Mia Farrow, his ex, his partner at the time, made the allegation after discovering Allen's romantic relationship with Soon Yi Praveen, Mia Farrow's adopted daughter from a previous relationship. She was around 21 and Woody Allen was 56 years old at the time. And it was rumored back then that, in fact, he had been dealing with her when she was not of age. So Dylan Farrow has publicly maintained her claim, including in a 2014 open letter and the 2021 HBO docuseries Allen versus Farrow. Mia Farrow, for those of you who don't know, she's the woman who starred in the movie produced by also a person who was accused of doing things to people not of age, but who was allowed to flee the country. Roman Polanski. Yeah, she was the star of that movie he did, Rosemary's Baby. That's who Mia Farrow is, for those of you who don't know. Now, Woody Allen has consistently denied the allegations, as we would expect him to. We don't expect any of these people to ever come forward and admit to their nefariousness, claiming they were fabricated by Mia Farrow during a bitter custody battle. Well, here's the thing. If they had been fabricated, why would Dylan Farrow be saying the same thing that Mia Farrow is saying? And also, don't you think it's a bit gross that he was dating and having a whole relationship with Suyi Preveen, who was 21 while he was 56, and that was his own wife's adopted daughter from a previous relationship? Okay, I find it all interesting. Now, Hale New Haven Hospital conducted a months-long investigation, and basically they concluded that Dylan had not been abused, though critics, including some experts and Dylan herself, questioned the thoroughness and the neutrality of the process. Okay, they felt like it was something shady went on and that the real results didn't get presented. Connecticut state prosecutors declined to press charges, citing the emotional toll that a trial might have on Dylan, but said they had probable cause to pursue prosecution. Okay, that case remains highly controversial with divided public opinion and still no legal conviction. Okay. So what do you all think? What do you all think? Hold on. Hold on. There was a video I wanted to show you all. Which one is it? Hold on, beloveds. I have so many receipts. I want to show you all this before I roll out of here. Is this it right here? Let me see. Likes up, everyone. Please don't forget to like and share. Thank you in advance. Yeah, here it is right here. This is what I want you all to pay attention to. Okay, because Trump can sit here and act like he wasn't a fan of Epstein's or Weinstein's and that he never knew Prince Andrew. That's what he said. He didn't know Prince Andrew. Who doesn't know Prince Andrew? Okay, in political circles. Like, please, make it make sense.
3 guests on this show who either knew Epstein or knew Trump have all used the exact same words to describe Trump and Epstein's relationship over the past week as we've been talking to them and you've heard them. And they have done this totally unprompted. So here is a former Trump business executive, one of Epstein's former girlfriends, and an Epstein accuser who says she had a troubling incident with Trump. They all said the exact same thing here on Out Front.
They were best friends.
They were best friends.
Was his best friend.
You heard them. And right there, Jack O'Donnell, Trump's former business associate, talking about what Epstein meant to Trump. These are people, right, who each met Epstein and Trump at different times, in different places, and just to state the obvious, in totally different capacities. And yet they all concur on this crucial thing. They say that when they knew them, Trump and Epstein were best friends. So in just a moment, I'm going to speak to Mark Epstein. He is the brother of Jeffrey Epstein about all of this. Out front now, Mark Epstein, the brother of Jeffrey Epstein. And Mark, from what you know, from what you saw, how close was your brother to Donald Trump?
They were very close. They were good friends. Jeffrey used to sometimes tell me things that Donald said that were funny. I know Donald was in Jeff's office a lot back in the 90s. It's documented that Donald flew on Jeff's plane a number of times. I don't know if they ever checked, but I know Jeff flew on Donald's plane also. I don't know if they've ever looked at his flight logs. And they were good friends. I flew on Jeff's plane. It's known I was on the plane in 1999, flying up from Florida, and Donald was with us. And we were all joking around. They were good friends.
So, tell me about that. I know there was something on that flight that you remember about your brother and Trump. What is it?
Well, it was a funny thing when we were talking, and stick a pin in that. A couple weeks or a week before that flight, I was talking to Jeffrey, and he told me that he was talking to Donald, and he asked Donald, how come you sleep with so many married women? And Donald's answer was, because it's so wrong. Now, amongst guys, it was a funny line. And then when we were on the plane a week or two later, Jeffrey asked Donald the same question. I know he did that for my benefit so that I could hear Donald say it. And Jeffrey asked him, how come you sleep with so many married women, and Donald said, because it's so wrong. Now, it's a funny line, but the answer is not the poignant part of the story here. The question is the poignant part, because for Jeffrey to ask him that question, number one, he would have to know that Donald slept with a lot of married women, so and he probably got that information from Donald. And
it
also,
implies a confidence.
That's not the kind of question you ask a casual acquaintance. How come you slept with so many married women? That's a question you ask a good friend that you can get away with asking those kind of questions. So that gives you an idea of how friendly they were.
Yes, it does. It does. It certainly gives that perception. Now, okay, Mark, Trump admits they had a falling out with your brother. That's what he said happened. He has not shared what led to it. But here are some of the things that he has been willing to say about your brother. I want to play them for you.
I was not a fan of Jeffrey Epstein. I threw him out of a club. I didn't want anything to do with him. Jeffrey Epstein was not somebody that I respected.
That does not fit with what you're telling me, Mark.
Yeah, I understand it doesn't. But he's trying to cover his butt. I mean, look, I understand people trying to distance themselves from Jeffrey because of what he was charged with and the circumstances he found himself in. I understand that. But I know that they were good friends, and I witnessed it.
He said, I know they were good friends, and he witnessed it. Of course he did. I believe every word. Now, Falconer again says, okay, so y'all never said Michael Jackson's not on the list, but in 1993 and 2004, he was a so-called weirdo like Jay-Z and Diddy them. Well, here's the thing, beloved. Say what you want about Michael Jackson, but there was a thorough investigation that lasted about a decade into Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson went to court and he was acquitted. Okay? He was acquitted. Jade says, so let's see, call Michael a PDF file. Meanwhile, the Royals, at the end of the day, and let me tell you something, honey. I know you want to believe that about Michael Jackson. Please be careful what you put in the chat. Okay, I'm deleting that comment for a reason. But at the end of the day, like I said, Michael Jackson was acquitted, beloved. And there's that. Okay, after a whole decades-long investigation. Okay? So what we can't do is put Michael Jackson in there because he was acquitted of any wrongdoing. Anything else is pure speculation. Okay? Now, just like we had transparency with Michael Jackson, because, they did actually release the evidence that he was acquitted and the paperwork from the investigation. I think I read about 300 pages of it that was available online at the time. And so Michael Jackson, he wasn't like them. Okay. As far as the courts are concerned. Now, with that all being said, Vince I Am from the UK says, Queen, you're being watched by the lamestream media minions and wigs hiding in the bushes, allegedly. # you heard it here first. I am, beloved. I am. That's why they copy my talking points, even steal my catchphrases. Okay. Oh, look at Jade getting upset. Says, you are a liar. Read the whole thing and don't play with me, lady. If I do play with you, what the hell are you going to do besides nothing? Am I supposed to be scared, sir or ma'am, or them, they, us, we, were, or whomever? At the end of the day, I don't have to lie about anything. Okay, that's what I don't have to do.
So,
you mentioned something a moment ago that made me think of this, something that the White House told us yesterday. We talked to a woman who accused your brother of sexual assault, and she also talked about an encounter with Trump at your brother's office. This was in 1995. She found it disturbing. She said she told the FBI twice to look into people around your brother, including Trump. But she talked about this incident that she said happened in his office. And the White House, their response to us, Mark, they were categorical. They said, quote, the president was never in Epstein's office. Is that true?
That's just another blatant lie, because he was there. The people that worked for Jeffrey in his office, you can find them. They can testify that they saw Trump in Jeffrey's office on numerous occasions. So for him to say he wasn't there, all I can say is that's just another lie.
So You talk about him as your brother, and you're you were on the plane together at that time. When did your brother first tell you that he was in legal trouble? When did you know anything about what he was doing?
It was about 2006 when he first got into trouble. It's known prior to Jeffrey's death. I hadn't seen him for 7 years, although we were always in touch, communication with telephone or emails, but we just never got together. And for the 12 years prior to that period of time, from like 2004 until 2008, we only got together maybe a half a dozen times or so, but we were always in contact. And in 2006, Jeffrey asked me to come up to his place uptown. He wanted to talk to me. So I was uptown. I stopped by. I'm not uptown all that much back then. I live downtown, and I sort of joke. I say to go above 14th Street, I need a visa. But so I went to talk to him, and that's when he told me that he was getting in trouble for being with girls that were too young. He said he was stupid, but he wanted me to hear it from him as opposed to hearing it on the news or something. And that's when I first found out in 2006.
All right. And the reason that this is so important is trying to understand what the people around Epstein would have known, separate from what any of them might have also been doing, right? So I guess the question here then, Mark, is did you have any suspicions before Jeffrey's confession to you that he was involved with underage girls?
No, because I rarely saw him, so I didn't know what he was involved with. We had different lives. He had his friends, and I had my friends. We traveled in two separate circles, in a sense. A few people we knew together, but, he was more in the financial community uptown. I was more involved with the arts community downtown. So we had two separate lives, but we were brothers. We always stayed in touch. But the thing is, Aaron, the thing with the charges against him, that's really not my concern at this point in time. Jeffrey is dead. So, I'm not the prosecutor. I'm not his defense attorney. I'm more concerned with the circumstances around what I now consider his murder.
Right. So
that's unsolved.
So I want to ask you that, okay, because the Department of Justice issued that memo earlier this month, right? It's at the core of a lot of this that reads in part, and I quote, Mark, after a thorough investigation, FBI investigators concluded that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide in his cell. Now, you say you were the one called to identify his body. You had conversations at that time. And you do not accept this finding.
No, I don't, because what they don't mention in the report, and no one says, is that, after Jeffrey died, the next day I had to go to, number one, to identify his body because I'm the next of kin. There's only heir. And they did the autopsy then. And Dr. Roman, who was the city pathologist, it was her autopsy. And Dr. Bondman was there on my behalf because I had the right to have, the family has the right to have their own pathologist there. And they did the autopsy, and they came out of the autopsy a couple hours later, and they both concurred that they could not call this a suicide because it looked too much like a homicide. They're very clear about that.
All right, Mark, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so you all heard that. Black Airman said, don't come for the queen. Exactly. Thank you, beloved. Okay, so listen, this fool, Jade, whatever their name was, said that I was a liar. And don't play with me, lady. Well, don't you play with me, fool. Because here's the thing. Now, I've banned them from the chat, but I'm sure they're still watching from the bushes, no less. But here is the proof right here, honey. I don't have to lie about a damn thing. Please pay attention. Okay, a simple Google search will tell you what you need to know. Okay, read that. And I'm going to give you even more details than it says in the Google stuff because I have this all in my emails. Okay, I typed in, was Michael Jackson acquitted of abusing children? Yes, Michael Jackson was acquitted of all child molestation charges in a 2005 trial. So where's the lie? A jury in Santa Maria, California found him not guilty on 10 counts, including child molesting, attempted child molesting, and conspiracy over a 14-week trial and 7 days of deliberation. Okay, so I don't have to lie, baby. My facts are always accurate. I always know what I'm talking about. And when I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm silent. Okay, so there's that. But let's go even just a bit further. I just wanted to put that on the screen so nobody could say, oh, she's just making it all up. So here's the thing. In 2003, like I said, I have all of this stuff in my Google Drive and in my emails because I have been doing thorough research. Okay, I didn't just start. That's all I'm saying. Now, while many people are just waking up, I've been awakened. Okay. So in 2003, Jackson was charged with child molestation, providing alcohol to a minor, and conspiracy to commit child abduction and false imprisonment, following the airing of a controversial documentary. The accuser was Gavin Arvizio, a 13-year-old boy who had been battling cancer. Gavin Arvizio. That's the pronunciation. Now, the case went to trial in Santa Maria, California in 2005. The verdict was, after a highly publicized trial, the jury found Michael Jackson not guilty on all 14 counts. On all counts, okay? Including the major charges of molestation and conspiracy. And this trial lasted about 14 weeks. Okay? Lasted about 14 weeks. Measure Man says, for the good of the kingdom, we defend the queen, the truth. Know your place. Facts over feelings. Okay. Thank you, beloved. Absolutely. All right. I appreciate you. Thank you for saying that. And also for your contribution to the channel. Peace, love, and blessings. Okay. See, the loyal royals have my back. Okay. Jade, whatever your name is. All right. So with that all being said, now this documentary came out and he was acquitted of all the charges. Now, Jackson had previously faced allegations in 1993 from another boy, Jordan Chandler. Okay. Now, that case was settled out of court for a reported $20 million. No criminal charges were filed at the time. And here's the thing. Michael did not want to settle that lawsuit. He was basically told to do so by his attorneys because at the time he was going on tour or something like that. And they said it's going to be bad press and just go ahead and get rid of it. See, this is what people often do at the behest or at the advice of their attorneys. Because they think this is going to make it easier. It'll just go away. But, you know, for some people, when they hear these things, it sounds like guilt. Okay. They think, oh, you paid because it's guilt. Just like in the case of Diddy. They say, oh, Diddy gave her the money within less than 24 hours. Again, let me remind you, for those of you who missed it, and I showed you the receipts, Diddy did not choose to pay Cassie. Why would he choose to pay her when for 6 months she was supposedly extorting him and his team, saying that if they didn't give her $30 million, she was going to write a tell-all book. And then all of a sudden she files that lawsuit. Okay. Diddy didn't want to pay her. The insurance companies paid her. That's what they did. It's the same thing with Bill Cosby. They paid those women through his insurance companies. Bill Cosby didn't want to settle with them. So anyway, let me continue. I don't want to get off track. So despite the 2005 acquittal, public debate and speculation about Jackson's behavior have continued, especially after the release of the 2019 HBO documentary, Leaving Neverland, in which two men, Wade Robinson and James Safechuck, these lying devils, one of them previously had said that Michael Jackson never did anything to him on the stand. But Oprah, being the low-down devil that she is and the raccoon that she's always been, okay, she allowed them to come on her platform and besmirch Michael Jackson's name and tell all these lies. That's what she did. Okay, they alleged abuse by Jackson when they were children. These allegations were not part of the original trial. In short, Michael Jackson was never convicted of being a PDF file and was acquitted by a jury in the only criminal case brought against him. However, public opinion remains divided due to later accusations and media coverage. And the only reason there was later accusations is because these two little thugs, okay, Wade Robson and James Safechuck, just wanted a payday because they were broke. Now, the FBI investigated Michael Jackson. See, this is how you should know and dispel any rumors that it ever even happened, even when he settled in 1993, because here's why. The FBI investigated Michael Jackson for over a decade, just like I told that fool. Okay, just like I told that fool. Okay, they investigated Michael Jackson for over a decade with their involvement spanning from the early 1990s to 2005. So even when he settled in 1993, the FBI was already investigating him and they found nothing. All right. The FBI released a 333-page report in 2009. And like I said, I read it. Okay. I told y'all it was 300 pages or more. But anyway, which revealed their role in assisting local authorities in California during multiple investigations, not just one, not just two. All right. The Bureau monitored and assisted with cases between 1993 and 2005, including the 1993 allegations involving Jordan Chandler, which ended in a civil suit settlement, not criminal charges. And that's because the FBI didn't find anything. See, here's the thing. Here's how you know Michael Jackson was absolutely innocent. Because even though Diddy was sued by Cassie and he gave her the money in a civil settlement, or his insurance companies paid her the money, there still came after criminal charges because there was an investigation launched when she filed that lawsuit. That being said, doesn't it make sense that if the FBI was investigating Michael Jackson in 2000 or 1993, that investigation was launched because of the accusations? So even though Michael Jackson elected to settle for $20 million, that didn't stop them from doing an investigation in which they found nothing. So that's why there was never any criminal charges. I think I've made my case that Michael Jackson was innocent of any wrongdoing. Okay? Now, goes on to say, because I want to give y'all all the facts. So, the 1993 allegations involving Jordan Chandler, which ended in a settlement, civil settlement, not criminal charges. The 2003 to 2005 criminal investigation and trial, during which the FBI analyzed computer data and helped evaluate potential evidence, including interviews and forensic matters, all proved to show nothing. The FBI did not find any conclusive evidence that Jackson had committed any federal crimes, including child exploitation or trafficking. Despite extensive investigation, no federal charges were ever filed against Jackson. In summary, or in short, the FBI's involvement lasted roughly 12 years, from 1993 to 2005, primarily in a support role to state-level investigations. Ultimately, the FBI concluded in its efforts there was no federal case against Michael Jackson. So where's the lie? Okay, where is the lie? I just want y'all to pay attention, honey. My receipts are accurate and on point. Okay? That's just facts. So with that all being said, I could give y'all some more receipts, but I think I'm going to wrap it up right here because we're already past 2 hours and 30 minutes. Okay? I want to thank you all for tuning in. I hope you all like and share this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. All right, like, share, and subscribe. Please be sure to double check and make sure you're still subscribed to the channel, especially if you have not been receiving notifications. With that all being said, listen, I'm going to come back later because, like I said, I have more information on Trump, what he's doing behind the scenes, and Diddy and Cassie. Yeah. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. So with that all being said, Nicole said, Queen, don't listen to the trolls. They not like us. Exactly. You know they aren't. Okay, so anyway, I love you all to life. I hope you all enjoy the rest of this beautiful day, and I hope to see you again at 6 p.m. when I do go live. I'm going to go ahead and post the link now, okay? And right after I finish this, I'm going to go ahead and post the link for 6 o'clock. Anyway, with that all being said, each one teach one. That's how we're going to thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember, beloveds, to keep the Most High first in your lives. Until next time.
Hit him with that gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you're done. They show no love for the queen. Why you hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans? I got dreams like King Luther, shed blood like Kunta. You ain't helping my people, I ain't got nothing to say to ya. I want all the smoke like hookah. Talking reparations, America won't be great until they give us compensation. I'm like, I'm the hottest right now. That's See right. A bunch of lames out here trying to jock on my style. They be doing too much. I'm the queen, it's too easy. It's like they all at Popeyes, how they be talking so greasy. I just sit back and laugh while these haters get madder. So nefarious how they don't want my pockets with cheddar. I tell them they can do better. These snakes in the grass can leave a bite on your ass, cause y'all be trusting too fast. I got my foot on the gas, other one on they necks. Dropping receipts on haters, you better show some respect. I'm never facing regrets, we only facing the threats. Running through every challenge like a relay, break no sweat. It's a cold game, so I got that blanket with me. Now that my people awaken, ain't no going to sleep. I do not play by my piece, this time I'm playing for keeps. You talking slick, but when I see you like them ends, we gon' meet. And I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen. Why they hating on me? touch one Ahmadiyyah done. They show no love for the queen.